Welcome to the Wandering Mind, where we focus on calm learning for curious minds at rest. Before we begin, what time is it where you are, and which part of the world are you listening from? Thanks for joining me today. Now, allow your thoughts to drift and let the world fall away. Vast theatre of history, battles have always commanded our attention with their vibrant noise and motion. The clashing of swords, the thunder of hooves, and the cries of warriors echo through the pages of time, leaving an indelible mark on our collective memory. Yet if one listens closely, beneath the din of conflict lies a quieter, more persistent hum, the sound of logistics. It is the gentle rustle of grain sacks, the lowing of oxen, the steady tread of sandaled feet carrying the lifeblood of armies. For every mighty clash, there exists an intricate web of support, weaving silently behind the scenes. As we embark on this contemplative journey, we find ourselves pondering a deceptively simple question. How does one feed an entire army, day after day, without the benefit of modern transport? In a world devoid of motorways, refrigerated trucks, and instant communication, the task of providing sustenance for thousands of men becomes a monumental challenge. And yet, throughout history, this challenge was met with remarkable ingenuity and quiet determination. In the shadow of the great empires, where the focus often rests on emperors and generals, there existed a host of unsung heroes. The quartermasters who meticulously planned supply routes, the cooks who transformed simple ingredients into hearty meals, the bakers who provided the staple bread, the farmers who toiled to produce the essential grains, and the muleteers who drove the animals upon which so much depended. Together, they formed the backbone of any military force, transforming the chaos of war into a more manageable order. Reflecting on these quiet endeavors, we realize that the movements of empires were propelled not only by the might of their armies, but also by the humble sacks of grain that kept their soldiers marching. The logistics that sustained these vast forces were, in many ways, as crucial as the strategies employed on the battlefield. They were the lifeline that ensured survival, boosted morale, and ultimately decided the fate of nations. As we delve deeper into this topic, we shall uncover the intricate systems that ancient civilizations devised to solve the perennial problem of feeding an army. We will explore the diverse diets of soldiers from different cultures, the art of food preservation before the age of refrigeration, and the remarkable logistical machines that kept armies supplied as they marched across continents. This quiet exploration will guide us through the rise and fall of empires, not through the noise of their battles, but through the silent strength of their supply lines. It is a journey into the heart of human ingenuity and cooperation, where the whisper of logistics becomes the true voice of history. In the soft shadows of history, where the clashing of swords and the cries of battle were but distant echoes, there existed a quieter, yet equally vital, rhythm. This was the steady, unyielding pulse of logistics, the whisper of supply lines, and the silent strength of sustenance. As much as spears and shields, it was the humble sack of grain that determined the fate of empires. For an army, food was not merely sustenance, it was strategy, morale, and survival. It was the unseen force that propelled legions across continents, a truth as ancient as warfare itself. Reflecting on this, it's intriguing to consider how the phrase, "an army marches on its stomach," is often attributed to Napoleon Bonaparte, encapsulating an understanding that transcends eras. Yet this notion was no less relevant in ancient times. Indeed, the success of military campaigns hinged not only on the prowess of warriors, but on the careful orchestration of resources to keep them fed and fighting. Food, then, was everything. Imagine, if you will, the Herculean task of feeding an entire army. Each soldier, a cog in the vast machinery of conquest, required between 3,000 to 4,000 calories per day to maintain their strength and endurance. This need was not merely a matter of survival, it was a critical component of military strategy. A well-fed soldier was a motivated soldier, one capable of enduring long marches and fierce battles. Conversely, hunger could sap morale, weaken resolve, and turn the tide of war. In this context, food became a unifying force, a shared necessity that transcended individual differences. It was a common thread that bound soldiers together, fostering camaraderie and collective purpose. The daily ritual of sharing meals, simple though they might have been, offered moments of respite and reflection amidst the rigors of military life. It was during these times that soldiers gathered around campfires, breaking bread and sharing tales, finding comfort in the familiar taste of home in foreign lands. The logistics of feeding an army were as complex as they were essential. It required meticulous planning and foresight, with quartermasters calculating not only the quantity of food needed, but also how to transport and preserve it. Grain, dried meat, and other staples were carefully measured and rationed, ensuring that supplies could sustain the troops for weeks or even months on end. The task was daunting, yet the ancient quartermasters were nothing if not resourceful, employing a combination of innovation and tradition to meet their needs. Consider the Roman legions, whose conquests spanned vast territories. Their success was due in no small part to their sophisticated supply chains. Each soldier carried a portion of grain, while larger quantities were transporting by wagon or animal. This grain would be ground into flour using portable hand mills, then baked into bread, a staple that provided both sustenance and energy. The Romans understood that controlling the supply of food was as crucial as commanding the battlefield. Their ability to maintain well-fed troops allowed them to extend their reach across Europe, North Africa, and the Near East. Similarly, other ancient cultures recognized the strategic importance of food. For the Greeks, whose armies often engaged in seasonal warfare, the timing of campaigns was dictated by the agricultural calendar. They would carry with them rations of olives, figs, and barley, relying on these staples to sustain them during their expeditions. The Persians, with their vast empire, developed a network of supply depots and waystations, ensuring that their troops could march swiftly and without want. Yet the reliance on food as a strategic resource was not without its challenges. Armies were vulnerable to shortages, whether due to miscalculations, spoilage, or enemy interference. The specter of famine loomed large, capable of crippling even the mightiest of forces. In such times, the discipline of soldiers was tested, for desperation could lead to disorder and defeat. The delicate balance between abundance and scarcity was ever present, a reminder of the fragility of power. In the quiet contemplation of history, we find that the story of military logistics is as much about human ingenuity as it is about survival. It is a testament to the resilience and adaptability of those who toiled behind the scenes, ensuring that soldiers could march onward. The unsung heroes of ancient warfare, quartermasters, cooks, bakers, worked tirelessly to keep the wheels of conquest turning. Their contributions, though often overlooked, were indispensable to the success of military campaigns. As we draw our reflections to a close, let us pause to appreciate the profound simplicity of this truth, that behind every great military endeavor lay the humble act of feeding an army. It was this quiet, persistent effort that sustained empires, shaping the course of history in ways both subtle and profound. And so, as we ponder the past, we recognize that the art of logistics, the gentle hum of supply lines, remains an enduring legacy, one that continues to whisper through the annals of time. In the stillness of an ancient morning, as the sun stretches its gentle fingers across the landscape, we can imagine the quiet rustle of soldiers stirring from their slumber. Across different corners of the world, from the mighty Roman Empire to the sprawling lands of the Han Dynasty, these soldiers would have woken to a familiar yet vital routine, the first meal of the day. It is a simple ritual, yet one that underscores the vast and intricate web of logistics supporting every army. The diet of a soldier was not merely about sustenance. It was a carefully considered strategy, an unspoken contract between life and duty. Let us begin our journey in the heart of the Roman Empire, where the daily bread, or panis, served as the cornerstone of a legionary's diet. Roman soldiers were provided with a ration of grain, which they would grind into flour using small hand mills. This flour was then transformed into hearty loaves, often baked in communal ovens. Bread in its many forms was the staple, offering both energy and comfort. Alongside this, soldiers consumed a porridge known as pools, made from barley or wheat, which was both nourishing and easy to prepare. In the adjacent lands of Greece, soldiers had a diet that echoed their Roman counterparts but with distinct Mediterranean flavors. The Greeks valued wheat and barley, much like the Romans, but olives and figs also played an essential role in their sustenance. These fruits, often dried, provided vital nutrients and were easily transportable. Wine, diluted with water, was a common accompaniment, serving as both a refreshment and a means to purify their water supplies. Cheese, too, found its place in the diet, offering a rich source of protein and fat. Turning our gaze to the sands and fertile plains of Egypt, we find a diet deeply rooted in the gifts of the Nile. Egyptian soldiers relied heavily on emmer wheat, from which they made a coarse bread. Beer brewed from barley was not just a luxury but a staple, offering hydration and nutrition in one. Fish from the Nile, often preserved by drying or salting, provided much-needed protein, while onions and garlic were not only flavorful but believed to offer medicinal benefits. In the vast and culturally rich Persian Empire, the diets of soldiers were as diverse as the lands they hailed from. Barley and wheat remained central, yet the Persian love for rice began to emerge during this era. Rice, when available, was often cooked with fragrant herbs and spices, creating a meal that was both sustaining and delightful. Meat, primarily lamb or goat, was a valued component of their diet, sometimes dried or salted for preservation. Yogurt, a legacy of pastoral life, was a common addition, providing nutrition and a cooling balance to their meals. Lastly, we journey to the expansive territories of the Han Dynasty in China, where rice reigned supreme. For the soldiers of Han China, rice was more than just food. It was a symbol of sustenance and prosperity. When rice was not available, wheat and millet served as substitutes, fashioned into noodles or dumplings. The Han soldiers also enjoyed a variety of vegetables, often pickled or fermented, which introduced a beneficial source of vitamins. Tea, though in its early forms, provided a refreshing and cleansing drink, complementing their meals. Across these cultures, a tapestry of common threads and unique flavors is woven. Cereals like barley, wheat, and rice were the pillars upon which armies were built, providing the necessary energy for arduous campaigns. Pulses and legumes, rich in protein, supplemented these grains. dried meats and fish added essential nutrients while being practical for long journeys. Fermentation and pickling, universally embraced, offered both preservation and a delightful complexity to the blandness of staples. Yet amidst this unity, the regional differences highlight the adaptability and ingenuity of ancient peoples. The Greeks and their olives, the Persians with their rice, and the Chinese with their tea each tell a story of cultural identity, shaped by geography and tradition. These differences were not mere anomalies. They were essential adaptations that allowed each civilization to thrive in its unique environment. As we reflect upon this diverse array of diets, we gain insight into the quiet but formidable force that food exerts on the course of history. It is a reminder that while battles might be fought with swords, it is the humble grain and the simple meal that sustain the warriors who wield them. In this understanding, we find a shared humanity, where the ancient soldier, regardless of his banner, is united by the universal need for nourishment and the silent promise of survival. In the quiet passage of time, where the echoes of clashing swords and the thunder of hooves gradually fade, a subtler battle unfolds. It is the battle against decay, a relentless adversary that ancient armies had to outwit, lest their ambitions be starved into submission. Here, in the gentle art of food preservation, we find humanity's resourceful whispers, whispered long before the hum of refrigeration. Imagine, if you will, the ancient soldier, a stalwart guardian of the realm, neither conqueror nor vanquished, but an eternal traveler through landscapes both familiar and foreign. His sustenance, the very essence of his endurance, is entrusted to the ingenuity of those who understood that preserving food was as vital as wielding a well-tempered blade. In a time when the world turned at a slower pace, the methods devised to keep food from spoiling were both simple and profound. Drying, smoking, and salting, these were the crafts of preservation, each with its own quiet poetry, each a testament to human adaptability. Drying, perhaps the oldest method, relied on the sun's gentle caress. The warmth of the day drew moisture from fruits, grains, and meats, transforming them into lightweight provisions that could be stored for months. Imagine the sun-drenched courtyards, where figs and dates lay spread upon mats, slowly surrendering their moisture to the air. The process was a patient one, a slow dance with nature's rhythms, requiring only time and a watchful eye. Smoking, a more complex symphony of elements, involved the introduction of fragrant woods and aromatic herbs. As meats and fish hung suspended in smokehouses, the curling tendrils of wood smoke wove their intricate patterns, infusing the food with flavors both rich and enduring. The art of smoking not only preserved but also transformed, adding layers of taste that would accompany the soldiers on their long marches. This method was a testament to the symbiosis between humanity and the natural world, a quiet acknowledgement of the gifts the earth bestowed. Salting, with its crystalline granules, was another pillar of preservation. Salt was a commodity so prized that it sometimes rivaled gold in value, not merely for its ability to season, but for its power to stave off decay. In the briny embrace of salt, meats and fish found refuge, their longevity assured through the simple act of osmosis. Salt's preservative properties were known across cultures, a universal language spoken in every corner of the ancient world. These methods, though varied in their execution, shared a common thread. They were born of necessity and honed through generations of trial and error. Each technique was a quiet victory over the forces of nature, an elegant solution to the perpetual problem of sustenance on the move. Beyond the mechanics of drying, smoking, and salting, There lay an entire realm of containers crafted to safeguard these precious provisions. Amphorae, with their graceful curves and sturdy forms, cradled olive oil and wine, their sealed mouths keeping the contents safe from air and spoilage. Earthen jars, wax-sealed and carefully stowed, held grains and legumes, their contents hidden from the ravages of moisture and pests. The amphorae themselves were masterpieces of engineering, their designs perfected over centuries to balance strength with portability. These containers were not merely vessels, they were lifelines, ensuring the continuity of supply even amid the uncertainties of campaign life. In the quiet corners of ancient kitchens, artisans worked with clay and reed, crafting baskets and leather bags. These woven and stitched creations were as vital to the preservation of food as the methods themselves. The art of container making was a subtle craft, one often overlooked, yet it was indispensable in the grand tapestry of logistics. The ingenuity of these preservation techniques and containers speaks to a profound truth about humanity, our ability to adapt, to innovate, and to thrive in the face of adversity. Long before the advent of refrigeration, these methods ensured that armies could march unencumbered by the weight of hunger, their resolve nourished by the foresight of those who understood the delicate balance between abundance and scarcity. In this reflection on the art of preserving food, we see the quiet triumphs of human ingenuity, the invisible threads that have woven together the fabric of history. Each method, each container, is a reminder of how the simplest of acts, drying a fig, salting a piece of meat, sealing an amphora, can ripple through time, sustaining not just armies, but the very course of civilization itself. As we ponder these ancient practices, let us also consider the enduring wisdom they impart, that in the preservation of food lies the preservation of life, and in the quiet mastery of such arts, we find the echoes of 1,000 generations whispering to us through the ages. The Roman army, a force unparalleled in the ancient world, was as much a triumph of logistics as it was of military might. While the clatter of swords and the disciplined march of legionaries might first capture our imagination, it is the quieter, steadier pulse of supply that truly underpinned Rome's martial success. The Roman legions were more than mere collections of soldiers. They were living, breathing organisms that required sustenance, and the Romans understood better than most that an army marches on its stomach. The rich tapestry of Roman military logistics is well documented, a testament to the meticulousness of Roman record-keeping. Through the preserved writings of historians, the remnants of military camps, and the artifacts unearthed by archaeologists, we can piece together a detailed picture of how the Roman legions were fed and sustained. This documentation is not just a collection of facts. It is a window into a world where the mundane details of daily life were woven into the grand narrative of empire. At the heart of this logistical machine was a simple yet profound understanding. Soldiers needed food, and lots of it. A Roman soldier required approximately 3,000 to 4,000 calories a day to maintain the energy levels necessary for marching, training, and combat. To meet these needs, the Romans developed a sophisticated system that began with the production of grain and extended all the way to the individual soldier's mess tin. The Roman army relied heavily on grain, particularly wheat, as the staple of its diet. This choice was no accident. Wheat is both calorically dense and relatively easy to store and transport. The grain supply was centralized and carefully controlled, ensuring that the army could be provisioned even when far from home. Each legionary carried a portion of grain with him, often enough to last several days. This personal rationing system not only ensured that soldiers had a direct and immediate source of sustenance, but also served to reduce the logistical burden on the army's supply lines. The process of turning grain into food was a daily ritual for Roman soldiers. Portable hand mills known as querns were used to grind the grain into flour. These small mills, a common sight in Roman camps, were usually operated by the soldiers themselves or by camp followers. The flour was then mixed with water to create dough, which could be baked into bread or cooked into porridge. Bread in particular was a cornerstone of the Roman diet. It was simple, filling, and could be easily carried or stored, making it an ideal food for soldiers on the move. The efficiency of the Roman logistical system was not solely reliant on the grain supply. The Roman army also made use of a variety of preserved foods to supplement the diet of its soldiers. Salted meats, dried fruits, and fermented fish sauces added variety to the diet and provided additional nutrition. These preserved foods were carefully packed and transporting, ensuring that they remained edible for as long as possible. The Romans were also adept at utilizing local resources. When on campaign, the army would forage and requisition supplies from the surrounding countryside. This practice, while it could be burdensome to local populations, was an essential part of maintaining the army's mobility and reducing its reliance on long supply lines. The Roman legions were trained to live off the land when necessary, a practice that required discipline and resourcefulness. In addition to food, the Roman logistical machine had to provide for the other needs of the soldiers, including water, clothing, and equipment. Each of these elements was carefully accounted for and managed by a dedicated cadre of military administrators and quartermasters. These men, though often overlooked in the grand narratives of history, were the unsung heroes of the Roman military machine. Their work was characterized by precision and foresight, qualities that ensured the smooth operation of the army, even in the most challenging conditions. The Roman approach to logistics was not static. It evolved over time in response to new challenges and opportunities. As the empire expanded, so too did the complexity of its supply networks. The Romans developed sophisticated methods for transporting goods over long distances, utilizing a combination of roads, rivers, and sea routes. The famed Roman roads, engineered with care and precision, facilitated the rapid movement of troops and supplies across the empire. These roads, a marvel of engineering, served as the arteries of the Roman logistical system. The Roman army's ability to sustain itself was a key factor in its success on the battlefield. It allowed Roman forces to campaign far from home for extended periods, projecting power across vast distances. The logistical support structure of the Roman army was not just a background detail, it was a crucial component of Roman military strategy. By ensuring that their soldiers were well fed and well equipped, the Romans were able to maintain a high level of morale and combat effectiveness, even in the most trying circumstances. In reflecting on the Roman legion's food system, we are reminded of the quiet, often invisible work that underpins great endeavors. The Roman army's logistical machine was a testament to the power of organization and planning, qualities that enabled Rome to sustain its empire for centuries. As we consider the intricate dance of supply and demand that defined the Roman military, we glimpse the broader truth that the success of any great undertaking rests as much on the mundane as it does on the heroic. The quiet rhythms of daily sustenance, the careful planning of resources, and the relentless drive for efficiency are the unsung notes in the symphony of history. In the quiet moments before dawn, when the air is crisp and the world is still bathed in the gentle hues of twilight, the Roman soldier stirs from slumber. His life, filled with the rigors of military discipline and the uncertainties of distant campaigns, finds its rhythm in the most elemental of routines, beginning with the sustenance that fuels his every step. At the heart of this daily ritual lies an unassuming staple, the very lifeblood of the legion: grain. Grain, in its various forms, has been a silent companion to many civilizations. For the Romans, it was more than mere sustenance. It was a strategic resource, a foundation upon which the might of their legions was built. Each soldier carried a portion of this precious commodity, a tangible link to the agricultural heartlands that supported Rome's expansive reach. In its humble kernels lay the energy to march, the strength to wield a sword, and the resilience to endure the hardships of military life. The Roman military machine was in many ways a marvel of logistical prowess. While the clashing of swords and the roar of battle might capture the imagination, it was the silent, steady flow of grain that sustained the legion's campaigns. The soldier's daily ration, customarily a pound or so of grain, was a carefully considered amount, calibrated to meet the energy demands of a man in the prime of his physical exertion. This ration was not merely dispensed, but was a shared responsibility among the men. Each soldier carried his own portion, a personal cache of sustenance that tied him to both his comrades and the sprawling empire that supported their endeavors. In the camp, the act of transforming grain into something more palatable and nourishing was a communal one. Portable handmills, known as querns, accompanied the legions wherever they went. These rudimentary devices, with their simple yet ingenious design, allowed soldiers to grind their grain into flour, which could then be mixed with water to create a rudimentary dough. This dough, when baked over campfires or in makeshift ovens, became bread, a staple as integral to the Roman diet as it was to their sense of home. Bread in its many forms has long been a symbol of sustenance and community. For the Roman soldier, it was a daily reminder of the empire's reach and the ingenuity of its people. The process of grinding grain, kneading dough, and baking bread was more than a means of subsistence. It was a ritual that connected the soldier to the earth, to his fellow soldiers, and to the enduring legacy of Rome itself. In the quiet moments as the bread baked and the aroma filled the air, there was a sense of continuity, a reminder that while battles raged and empires rose and fell, the simple act of breaking bread remained a constant. The legion's reliance on grain was not just a matter of nutrition, it was a strategic choice, one that reflected the empire's deep understanding of logistics and resource management. Grain could be stored for long periods without spoilage, transporting relatively easily, and transformed into a variety of foods to suit the needs and tastes of the soldiers. In this way, it was a versatile and reliable resource, one that could sustain men through the demands of campaign life. The importance of grain to the Roman military cannot be understated. It was the backbone of their supply chain, the quiet force that enabled their relentless expansion. Behind every victory and every conquest lay the steady, unyielding support of grain, a resource as essential to the legions as the armor they wore and the weapons they wielded. As we reflect on the role of grain in the life of the Roman soldier, we are reminded of the often overlooked elements that underpin human endeavor. In the grand tapestry of history, it is easy to focus on the dramatic and the heroic, to celebrate the triumphs and mourn the losses. Yet, woven into this tapestry are the quiet, steadfast threads of sustenance and support, threads that tell a story of resilience, ingenuity, and the enduring power of simple, essential things. In the end, the story of grain is not just a tale of sustenance. It is a testament to the interconnectedness of all things. It is a reminder that behind every moment of triumph and every tale of glory lies the quiet, unwavering presence of the things that sustain us. As the soldiers of Rome marched across continents, they carried with them not just the tools of war but the seeds of civilization, a reflection of the empire's enduring legacy and the simple truth that in all things, it is the quiet forces that often hold the greatest power. In the quiet tapestry of Roman military logistics, the humble cart and the steadfast mule were as vital as any weapon. They were the unsung heroes, moving silently over well-worn roads, carrying the lifeblood of the legion, its food, supplies, and hopes. Imagine, if you will, the gentle creak of wooden wheels turning, the soft clop of hooves on stone, all enveloped in the early morning mist. This was the sound of an army in motion, not through the clamor of battle, but through the subtle rhythm of supply lines extending like veins across the empire. The Roman approach to logistics was a marvel of ancient engineering and organization. At the heart of this system were the carts, simple yet robust wooden structures, designed to carry heavy loads over long distances. These carts were often drawn by oxen or mules, each chosen for their endurance and reliability. Oxen, with their slow, steady gait, were ideal for carrying heavy loads across flat terrain. Mules, on the other hand, were prized for their sure-footedness and ability to navigate more challenging landscapes. Together, they formed the backbone of the Roman supply chain. The distances these supply lines covered were remarkable. A Roman legion on the march could travel between 15 and 20 miles in a day, a feat made possible by the empire's extensive network of roads. These roads, meticulously engineered, offered a smooth passage for carts and animals alike, reducing the wear and tear that might otherwise slow an army's advance. Imagine the gentle rumble of wheels on stone, the steady plod of hooves, and the rhythmic sway of the cart, all moving in a silent, coordinated dance towards distant horizons. Each cart carried not only food, but also essential equipment and materials needed for the legion's survival and success. Supplies were meticulously weighed and packed to maximize efficiency. A typical cart might hold several hundred pounds of grain, dried meat, and other non-perishable foods, alongside tents, tools, and spare weapons. The organization of these supplies was crucial, ensuring that nothing was wasted and everything was easily accessible when needed. The Romans understood the importance of maintaining a steady flow of supplies, regardless of the challenges faced. This required careful planning and a deep understanding of the terrain. Supply lines had to be secured against the threats of enemy raids, and routes were often chosen for their safety as much as their speed. Scouts would be sent ahead to ensure the path was clear, while guards accompanied the carts to provide protection and assistance if needed. Reflecting on this intricate dance of logistics, one can't help but admire the quiet determination and ingenuity of those who managed it. Quartermasters, those silent strategists of supply, played a critical role. They oversaw the allocation of resources, ensuring that each soldier received their due ration, enough to keep them marching forward, ever ready for the challenges ahead. Their work was as vital as any general's, a testament to the power of quiet, methodical planning. The weight of these supplies was carefully calculated. Each soldier was expected to carry a portion of the load, typically around 60 pounds, including their personal gear and a share of the communal supplies. This distribution lightened the burden on the carts and animals, allowing the army to move more swiftly and efficiently. The balance between what was carried by man and beast was a delicate one, reflecting the Roman mastery of logistical nuance. As we ponder the soft sounds of this ancient supply chain, we are reminded of the quiet strength that lies in cooperation and organization. It is a gentle whisper of history, telling us that the might of an empire was not built on force alone, but on the careful, deliberate movement of food and materials across vast distances. The rhythm of supply lines and wagons, though often overlooked, was the very heartbeat of the Roman army, a testament to the enduring power of quiet, thoughtful engineering. Thus, in the gentle unfolding of our narrative, we find ourselves appreciating the subtle artistry of logistics. It is a reminder that even the most formidable forces rest upon the quiet, unassuming movements of carts and the steady plod of mules and oxen, all working in harmony to sustain the dreams of empires. In this reflection, we uncover a deeper understanding of how the world once moved, not in great leaps and bounds, but in the steady, measured pace of supply lines and wagons, echoing softly through the annals of time. In the gentle stillness of dawn, when the first tendrils of light begin to caress the world, there is a certain magic in the way the morning dew clings to ancient stones. Picture, if you will, the Roman road, a marvel of engineering that stretches forth like a silent ribbon, weaving its path through the landscape. These roads, meticulously laid and remarkably enduring, were the quiet arteries through which the lifeblood of an empire was made to flow. The Roman road was more than a mere pathway. It was a testament to human ingenuity and the relentless pursuit of connectivity. In an era long before the roar of engines and the hum of aeroplanes, these stone roads were the highways of an empire, enabling not only the movement of armies but the very sustenance of life itself. They facilitated the swift and efficient transportation of supplies, reducing spoilage and ensuring that the marching legions remained well provisioned. It is said that all roads lead to Rome, and indeed, the Roman road network was unparalleled in its scope and sophistication. The meticulous construction process began with the clearing of the ground, followed by the laying of a foundation of stones, gravel, or sand. This was then topped with a carefully fitted layer of large stone slabs. The result was a surface both durable and surprisingly smooth, designed to withstand the test of time and the elements. As you imagine the soldiers of the Roman legions setting forth on these roads, consider the impact of such efficient pathways on their daily sustenance. The reduction in travel time made it possible for fresh supplies to reach armies more quickly, decreasing the likelihood of food spoilage. It also allowed for the movement of heavier and more varied provisions, ensuring that the soldiers' diets could be supplemented with fresh produce and other perishable goods. The road network, like the veins and arteries of a living organism, extended across the Roman Empire, connecting distant provinces and creating a cohesive and integrated realm. It was not merely a logistical convenience, but a strategic advantage that enabled the Romans to project their power far and wide. The roads allowed for the rapid deployment of troops, the swift communication of orders, and the seamless integration of newly conquered territories. Reflect for a moment on the aesthetic beauty of these roads as they traversed the varied landscapes of the Roman world. Imagine the play of sunlight on the smooth stone surface, the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze, and the distant calls of birds greeting the dawn. There is a quiet poetry in this image, a reminder of the enduring legacy of those who labored to create something that would last through the ages. The Romans understood that a well-maintained road was essential to the health of the empire, inspiring a system of regular maintenance and repair. Milestones, placed at consistent intervals, provided not only direction but a record of distances traveled, allowing for precise planning of supply routes and military campaigns. These markers were tangible reminders of Roman presence and authority, quietly asserting the reach of the empire. In the context of military logistics, the roads were a strategic asset that could spell the difference between victory and defeat. They enabled the efficient transport of not only food, but also weapons, equipment, and reinforcements. The ability to move swiftly and decisively was a hallmark of Roman military strategy, and the roads were an integral part of this capability. Consider the legionary, marching along the Via Appia or the Via Egnatia, feeling underfoot the reassuring solidity of the road, each step bringing him closer to his destination. The knowledge that supplies would follow, reliably and predictably, was a comfort in an uncertain world. The road was a constant, a lifeline that connected the soldier to the vast machinery of the Roman state. In the quiet moments of reflection, as the sun rises higher and the day unfolds, there is a profound sense of connection to the past. The roads, though silent, speak volumes about the people who built them, about their vision and their understanding of the world. They remind us that even the most formidable empires are built on the foundations of simple, enduring truths, that the movement of goods and people is as essential to the fabric of society as the ideals and aspirations that drive human endeavor. As we draw this gentle exploration to a close, let us pause to appreciate the beauty and utility of the Roman roads, these stone pathways that carried the weight of an empire and the hopes of its people. They are a testament to the quiet strength of infrastructure and the power of human ingenuity, whispering to us across the centuries of the enduring importance of connection and continuity in the grand tapestry of history. In the quiet hours of dawn, as the Roman camp began to stir, a subtle transformation would occur. What was once a simple collection of tents and fortifications blossomed into something akin to a bustling village, a temporary yet vibrant hub of commerce and connection. This was the Vicus, the camp market, an often overlooked but essential component of Roman military life. The Vicus was not a singular, static entity, but rather a fluid and adaptable market that moved with the legions. As the soldiers prepared for their daily routines, traders from near and far would converge upon the camp, bringing with them the promise of variety and a taste of the familiar. These traders, or mercators, were the lifeblood of the Vicus, providing goods that went beyond the basic military rations and offering a glimpse into the local culture and produce. Imagine, if you will, the gentle clinking of pottery as traders set up their makeshift stalls. The air begins to fill with the inviting aromas of fresh bread, ripe fruits, and a myriad of spices. Here, in this lively yet orderly assembly, soldiers could purchase items that reminded them of home or discover new flavors that spoke of distant lands. The Vicus was more than a marketplace. It was a bridge between cultures, a place where the Roman and the local mingled in a shared space of commerce and curiosity. The traders who followed the legions were a diverse group, each with their own story and reason for embarking on this itinerant lifestyle. Some were local farmers or craftspeople, eager to capitalize on the economic opportunities that accompanied the presence of a Roman army. Others were more experienced merchants, well versed in the art of negotiation and adept at navigating the complex logistics of following a moving military force. And for the soldiers, the Vicus offered a welcome respite from the monotony of army rations. While the standard fare of grain, salted meat, and wine was enough to sustain them, it could not provide the same variety and pleasure found in the offerings of the Vicus. Here, a soldier might find fresh vegetables, honey, cheese, or even a taste of the exotic, such as dates from the Levant or spices from the East. Such diversity in diet was not merely a luxury, but often a necessity, helping to maintain morale and health during extended campaigns. The economic ecosystem that developed around the Vicus was a testament to the adaptability and resourcefulness of those involved. The traders, understanding the needs and preferences of their military customers, tailored their goods accordingly. Some even established long-term relationships with military units, becoming trusted suppliers and familiar faces within the shifting landscape of the Roman encampment. Yet the Vicus was not just a place of commerce. It was a space for social interaction and cultural exchange. Soldiers, traders, and locals mingled freely, sharing stories, bartering goods, and forging connections that transcended the immediate demands of military life. In this way, the Vicus served as a microcosm of the wider Roman world, a place where the boundaries between conqueror and native began to blur, if only for a moment. As the day progressed, the Vicus would pulse with activity, each transaction a quiet testament to the intricate dance of supply and demand. The sound of haggling voices, the rustle of coins changing hands, and the occasional laughter or shouted greeting created a symphony of human interaction. Here, amidst the organized chaos, one could sense the underlying rhythms of an ancient economy at work. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the camp, the Vicus would begin to wind down. Traders packed away their wares, soldiers returned to their tents, and the once bustling market slowly dissolved into the evening calm. Yet the impact of the Vicus lingered, its role in sustaining and enriching the lives of those it touched quietly acknowledged in the shared meals and stories that followed. In the end, the Vicus was more than just a market. It was a vital thread in the fabric of Roman military logistics, a reminder that even in the midst of conquest and conflict, the simple act of sharing food and commerce could create connections that transcended borders and boundaries. It was a quiet testament to the enduring power of human ingenuity and cooperation, a whisper of civilization amidst the march of empire. In the hush of dawn, as an ancient army stirs from its slumber, the first task is not to sharpen swords or don armor, but to break the fast. An army on the march knows its most pressing challenge is not the clash of steel, but the quiet, relentless demand of its collective stomach. Each day presents the same question: how to nourish thousands of souls as they traverse hostile lands, far from the safety of their granaries and the comfort of settled kitchens. The task of feeding an army on the move is a delicate dance between discipline and necessity, a choreography of survival amidst landscapes that do not always yield their bounty willingly. Armies, by their very nature, are disruptive forces in the lands they traverse. To maintain a semblance of order, strict rules govern their conduct, particularly in the matter of foraging. Foraging regulations, often inscribed in the codes of military discipline, dictate how soldiers may supplement their rations with the fruits of the land. These rules serve not only to protect the surrounding countryside from wanton destruction, but also to preserve the honor and cohesion of the military force itself. Foraging in the context of ancient armies was more than a mere matter of plucking fruit from trees or snaring a hare. It was a structured and strategic endeavor, often overseen by a designated officer whose duty was to ensure that the soldiers adhered to the rules. The regulations were clear. Foraging parties were to collect only what they needed and to do so with respect for the local inhabitants. In return, the army could avoid the twin dangers of famine and local hostility, each as deadly as the other. But what if these rules were broken? The specter of pillaging hovered over every campaign, a dark temptation for hungry, weary soldiers. The consequences of succumbing to this temptation were severe. Commanders understood that pillaging, if left unchecked, could unravel the fabric of their forces. Discipline was paramount, and punishment for those who plundered without permission was harsh. Swift and public justice served as a deterrent, flogging, imprisonment, or even death for the most egregious offenses. Such measures were not merely punitive, but also pragmatic, for an army that descended into chaos was doomed to fail. Yet amidst these stern regulations and their equally stern enforcement lay the necessity of feeding the army. In times of scarcity, the line between foraging and pillaging could blur. Commanders, aware of the precarious balance between maintaining discipline and ensuring their troops' survival, often had to make difficult decisions. At times, they turned a blind eye to minor infractions, allowing soldiers to gather what they could without inviting the wrath of the surrounding populace. It was a silent acknowledgement of the relentless hunger that marched alongside them, a pragmatic nod to the reality of life on the move. The art of feeding an army on the march, therefore, lay in this delicate balance. Commanders communicated the importance of restraint and respect, instilling an understanding that the army's success depended as much on its discipline as on its prowess in battle. Officers would lead by example, participating in foraging expeditions and ensuring that their conduct mirrored the standards expected of their men. Soldiers learned to identify edible plants, to hunt with minimal disruption, and to negotiate with local communities for supplies. In this endeavor, the army became a living organism, responsive to its environment and adaptable to its challenges. Soldiers developed an intimate knowledge of the landscapes they traversed, learning to read the land for signs of sustenance. Streams, forests, and fields became sources of life, their secrets unlocked by the collective experience of the troops. This knowledge was passed down through generations, a quietly spoken wisdom shared around campfires and whispered across the ages. The role of the local populace in this equation was significant. Often, the difference between a well-fed army and one suffering the ravages of hunger lay in the willingness of local communities to cooperate. This cooperation was not always born of goodwill. More often, it was the result of careful negotiation and the promise of protection. In some cases, local leaders would offer provisions in exchange for assurances that their homes and livelihoods would be spared the ravages of war. This delicate diplomacy was as vital a part of military strategy as any battlefield maneuver. As the army moved, so too did its understanding of the lands it crossed. Each campaign added to the collective knowledge of foraging, enriching the army's next journey with lessons hard-won from the last. The military annals of ancient empires are filled with tales of foraging successes and failures, stories of abundance and scarcity, each contributing to the evolving art of feeding an army on the march. In the quiet moments between battles, As soldiers gathered around their campfires, they would share stories of the day's foraging. These tales, often told with a touch of humor and a hint of exaggeration, served to strengthen the bonds of camaraderie that held the army together. The shared experience of seeking sustenance in foreign lands became a part of the army's identity, a testament to its resilience and ingenuity. Thus, feeding an army on the march was a testament to the quiet strength of discipline, the subtle art of negotiation, and the enduring power of human ingenuity. It was a reminder that even amidst the chaos of war, there existed a rhythm and order, a whispered understanding that survival depended not only on the might of arms, but on the wisdom to walk lightly upon the land. In this way, armies moved through history, leaving behind not just the echoes of their battles, but also the softer, yet no less significant, footprints of their journeys. In the whispering sands of ancient Persia, there stretched a network of roads, both visible and invisible, connecting vast swathes of an empire that extended its fingers over half the known world. These were not mere tracks in the dust, but a marvel of human ingenuity, a system of waystations and supply depots that quietly underpinned the might of the Persian military machine. The Royal Road, as it came to be known, was the backbone of this logistical masterpiece, threading its way from the heart of Persia to the Aegean coast. Its creation was an endeavor of both strategic and economic foresight, not merely a path for soldiers, but a conduit of culture, commerce, and sustenance. For along this road, at intervals of about a day's ride, stood the Chapar-Khane Waystations that served as the lifeblood of Persian logistics. These waystations were not grand structures, but rather practical outposts, each a small beacon of civilization in the vastness of the empire. They were designed for efficiency, built to last, and staffed by individuals whose roles were as vital to the empire's success as that of the soldiers who marched its roads. Each one was equipped with fresh horses, fodder stores, and granaries. The Chapar-Khane ensured that messages, goods, and armies could move swiftly across great distances, a silent testament to the power of organization over sheer force. In these granaries, grain stood in quiet rows, patiently waiting for the day they would fuel both man and beast. Wheat, barley, and millet were the staples, stored in robust clay jars that kept out the moisture and pests, a simple technology that had withstood the test of time. These stores were a strategic reserve, an insurance against the uncertainties of campaign and the whims of nature. There was a certain comfort in the knowledge that, no matter how far from home the army ventured, sustenance was but a day's journey away. The Persian approach to logistics was not merely about the movement of food and fodder, it was an entire ecosystem of supply designed to ensure the empire's longevity. The granaries along the Royal Road were but one part of this system. Fodder stores ensured that the cavalry, the swift and silent arm of the Persian military, could maintain its edge. Horses were as much a part of the army as the men who rode them, and their needs were meticulously planned for. The right balance of grains, hay, and water kept these noble animals in peak condition, ready for the demands of long campaigns. Beyond the practicalities of food and fodder, these waystations were also centers of information. Couriers, the unsung heroes of any empire, would pass through, changing horses, gathering intelligence, and dispatching orders. They moved like whispers in the wind, ensuring that the pulse of the empire beat strong and steady. The ability to communicate quickly and efficiently over such vast distances was a strategic advantage that the Persians wielded with quiet confidence. The Persian model of logistical support extended to the very edges of its empire, a quiet assurance that no matter where the army found itself, it was never far from the support it needed. This system allowed the Persians not merely to survive but to thrive, to expand their reach without overextending their resources. It was a triumph of planning and foresight, a subtle reminder that the strength of an empire lay as much in its ability to sustain itself as in the sharpness of its swords. In the gentle light of dawn, as an army set forth on the day's march, the soldiers could be confident that their needs had been anticipated, their path carefully laid out by those who came before. The quiet efficiency of the Waystations and depots was a testament to the wisdom of the Persian kings, who understood that true power was not only in the clash of arms, but in the quiet, persistent heartbeat of logistics. As we reflect on this ancient world, we find ourselves marveling at the quiet genius of those who crafted such systems. In the vastness of the Persian Empire, their work was the soft murmur beneath the cacophony of conquest, a gentle reminder of the threads that bind civilization together. The royal road was not just a path through the desert, it was a lifeline, an artery through which the lifeblood of an empire flowed, sustaining it through the ages with a quiet, enduring grace. In the quiet tapestry of history, where echoes of conquest often drown the whispers of logistical triumphs, Alexander the Great's campaigns stand as a testament to the delicate balance of ambition and pragmatism. Picture, if you will, a young Macedonian king, whose dreams stretched beyond the horizon, eager to carve an empire from the fabric of the known world. Yet beneath the sheen of his legendary military prowess lay a more subdued, yet equally formidable challenge, supplying his vast, ever-moving army. The Macedonian phalanx, a formidable formation of tightly packed soldiers bristling with long spears, was not just a martial innovation but a logistical undertaking. Each soldier or hoplite required sustenance, an unending demand for grains, meats, and water. To feed an army, especially one that moved with the swiftness of Alexander's, was to engage in a game of strategy where the stakes were survival itself. Alexander's logistical acumen was shaped early in his campaigns. Understanding the limits of his resources, he often chose speed over the burden of heavy supply trains, a decision that required a certain nimbleness and cunning. His army traveled light, carrying only essential supplies, always with an eye on the horizon for the next opportunity to replenish. This approach allowed them to traverse great distances at remarkable speeds, often catching opponents unprepared for the relentless advance. One might imagine the scene as the sun rose over a conquered city or a freshly subjugated stretch of land. The markets, still bustling with the rhythm of everyday life, suddenly found themselves supporting the needs of a foreign army. Alexander's forces relied heavily on local harvests, a practice that required both negotiation and, at times, forceful requisitioning. The lands through which they marched became both battlefield and breadbasket, each conquest providing the sustenance for the next. Yet this reliance on local resources was a double-edged sword. It required an acute awareness of the agricultural cycles of the regions they traversed. A misstep could lead to shortages, the specter of famine haunting the fringes of the army's path. Alexander's campaigns were, therefore, meticulously timed, aligning military movements with the rhythms of planting and harvest. This synchronization was not merely a matter of convenience, but a necessity, ensuring that the land could yield enough to sustain his men and animals. Amidst these grand movements, the quiet role of the logistics officer emerged as a critical element. These unsung heroes of the campaign were tasked with the vital responsibility of managing supplies, ensuring that the flow of resources, grain, water, and fodder, remained unbroken. Their work was a constant balancing act, maintaining the delicate equilibrium between the demands of the army and the capacity of the land to provide. Consider for a moment the logistical challenge of crossing the mighty Hindu Kush, a feat of endurance and tenacity. Here, the terrain itself became an adversary, towering mountains and treacherous passes demanding a toll in both time and resources. The army's supply lines stretched thin, yet Alexander's strategic foresight and reliance on local guides and knowledge allowed them to navigate these challenges with an almost uncanny ease. It was in these moments of logistical brilliance that Alexander's vision of conquest truly shone. His ability to adapt to the changing landscapes and resource availability showcased a profound understanding of the interconnectedness of geography, agriculture, and military strategy. Each campaign was a complex dance, where the steps were dictated as much by the availability of supplies as by the movements of enemy forces. Moreover, Alexander's charismatic leadership played a pivotal role in maintaining the morale of his troops. He understood that an army's spirit was as critical as its stomach. By sharing in the hardships of the march, often eating the same rations as his men, he fostered a sense of unity and purpose. This bond, forged in the crucible of shared adversity, became a driving force behind the army's relentless advance. As we reflect on the logistical mastery behind Alexander's campaigns, it becomes clear that his conquests were not merely the result of military might, but of a profound understanding of the subtle interplay between speed, supply, and strategy. The quiet machinery of his logistical operations was as crucial to his success as the clashing of swords on the battlefield. In this gentle exploration of Alexander's campaign logistics, we are reminded of the often overlooked narratives that underpin history's grandest tales. The feeding of an army, a seemingly mundane task, emerges as a linchpin of empire building, a testament to the ingenuity and resilience that propel human endeavor. As we drift through these reflections, it is the quiet triumphs, the whispered victories of logistics over chaos, that linger, inviting us to ponder the silent engines of history. In the lands where olive trees cast their gentle shadows and the scent of time fills the air, the Greek city-states forged their own unique approach to warfare. For the Greeks, the rhythm of battle was intricately tied to the turning of seasons, like the cyclical dance of Persephone between the underworld and the realm of the living. It was a life dictated by nature, where the demands of agriculture often held sway over the ambitions of conquest. The city-states of ancient Greece, such as Athens, Sparta, and Corinth, were entities that flourished within the cradle of the Mediterranean. Unlike the vast empires of Persia or the sprawling legions of Rome, these were smaller, independent political units. Their armies were comprised not of professional soldiers, but of citizen warriors, men who worked the fields and tended their flocks until the call to arms sounded. It was this dual existence that necessitated a careful balancing act between war and the harvest. In the Greek world, campaigns were often planned with an eye towards the agricultural calendar. The growing season demanded attention. Fields needed to be ploughed, seeds sown, and crops harvested. For a Greek hoplite, a soldier clad in bronze and armed with a spear, the obligations of the battlefield could not overshadow the imperative to ensure food security at home. Thus, the campaign season was typically restricted to the summer months, when the land lay fallow and the demands of farming were at their ebb. This seasonal approach to warfare was not merely a matter of convenience but a reflection of necessity. The Greek terrain, with its rugged hills and narrow valleys, was not conducive to the sprawling granaries and expansive supply lines seen in other ancient civilizations. Instead, the Greeks relied on a diet deeply rooted in their local environment, with staples that were as much a part of their cultural identity as their military prowess. Olives, figs, and barley were the holy trinity of Greek sustenance. The olive tree, with its gnarled trunk and silvery leaves, was a gift from Athene herself, according to myth. Its fruit, pressed into oil, was a source of nourishment and a vital trade commodity. Olive oil was used not only in cooking but also in lighting and as an offering to the gods. It was a portable form of sustenance that could accompany a soldier on campaign, providing both calories and a taste of home. Figs, on the other hand, were a sweet reminder of the fertile valleys that dotted the landscape. Dried figs were easily transporting and could withstand the rigors of travel, making them an ideal provision for armies on the move. Their natural sweetness offered a welcome respite from the more monotonous rations of the typical soldier's diet. Barley, the ancient grain, was the cornerstone of Greek agriculture. It was transformed into a porridge or ground into flour for bread. Barley cakes, often mixed with honey and nuts, were a simple yet sustaining foodstuff that could be carried into battle. This grain was hardy, capable of growing in the challenging Mediterranean climate, and it embodied the resilience of the Greek people themselves. The reliance on these local resources spoke to the Greeks' understanding of their environment and their capacity to adapt. Yet, it also meant that Greek armies were limited in their reach. Campaigns had to be swift, for the men needed to return to their fields and orchards. Prolonged engagements or distant expeditions risked not only military failure but agricultural ruin as well. In this way, the geography of Greece acted as both a constraint and a guide, shaping the nature of conflict and the strategies employed. Beyond the immediate logistics of feeding an army, there was also the social dimension of Greek warfare. The citizen soldier was not a professional warrior. He was a farmer, a craftsman, a merchant. His identity was tied to his polis, his city-state, and his participation in warfare was as much about civic duty as it was about defense. The shared experience of battle reinforced bonds within the hoplite phalanx, a formidable formation that relied on the cooperation and unity of its members. In times of war, slaves and women often took on the responsibilities left behind by the men. They tended the fields, ensuring that the city-state did not starve while its men were away. This was a silent support system, an invisible backbone that allowed the Greek armies to function. It was a testament to the interconnectedness of Greek society, where each member had a role to play in the survival and success of the whole. The Greek city-states, in their strategic brevity and reliance on local sustenance, offer a glimpse into a world where warfare was a seasonal endeavor, dictated by the cycles of nature. It was a world where olives, figs, and barley were not just food, but symbols of a way of life that harmonized with the land. In understanding their approach, we are reminded of the delicate balance that sustains human endeavors, a balance as fragile as the threads of fate spun by the Moirai, the Greek personifications of destiny. In the vast, undulating landscapes of the Eurasian steppe, there roamed peoples whose very existence was intertwined with the rhythm of their herds. The Scythians, Huns, and Mongols were not merely travelers across these plains, but were, in essence, masters of their domain, shaping their lives and strategies around the animals they tended. Their nomadic lifestyle, so attuned to the whims of nature, was underpinned by a unique approach to sustenance, where food was not a static commodity, but a living, breathing companion on their journeys. Imagine, if you will, the serene sight of a nomadic encampment at the break of dawn. The air is crisp, and the whispering winds glide gently over the grasslands. Amidst the lowing of cattle and the bleating of sheep, there is a quiet industriousness as the nomads stir to life. For them, the herd is a living pantry, providing not just meat but a myriad of other necessities. These animals, horses, sheep, goats, and camels, are both a source of sustenance and a means of transport, their dual roles seamlessly interwoven into the fabric of nomadic life. Horses in particular were the lifeblood of the steppe peoples. Beyond their role as swift steeds, they were revered for their immense utility. Fermented mare's milk, known as kumis, was a staple of the nomadic diet. This slightly tangy, effervescent beverage was not only refreshing but rich in nutrients, vital for sustaining energy during long journeys. The process of fermentation, a quiet testament to human ingenuity, transformed raw milk into a drink that could be preserved over time, providing a steady source of nourishment even when other supplies dwindled. In addition to kumis, the steppe peoples were adept at creating portable, long-lasting foods that could withstand the rigors of their itinerant lifestyle. Dried curds, often made from the milk of camels or goats, were a common sight. These curds, hardened under the sun and stored in small pouches, were a concentrated source of protein and could be reconstituted with water or consumed as they were, a simple yet effective solution to the challenges of feeding a moving populace. The nomads' relationship with their herds was one of mutual dependence and respect. By constantly moving with the seasons, they ensured that their animals always had access to fresh pastures. This mobility not only sustained the herds, but also allowed the nomads to evade the harsh extremes of the steppe climate, seeking shelter in the folds of their vast territory as needed. It is a quiet dance of survival, a testament to the adaptability and resilience of these peoples. As our thoughts drift over the horizon, we find ourselves considering the Scythians, whose mastery of horseback warfare was rivaled only by their adaptability in sustenance. Their diet was complemented by the wild bounty of the steppe, game hunted with precision and plants gathered with care. Meat was often preserved through drying or smoking, methods that extended the life of these precious resources. The Scythians, with their distinctive style of dress and unique cultural practices, were as much at home in their environment as the animals they tended. Turning our gaze to the Huns, we find a people whose movements struck fear and uncertainty into the hearts of settled civilizations. Yet beneath the veneer of ferocity lay a complex society, intricately dependent on the land and their herds. The Huns, like their steppe brethren, relied heavily on their livestock for sustenance. They practiced a pragmatic form of management, where the herd's health was paramount, ensuring a steady supply of meat and dairy. Their ability to thrive in diverse environments speaks to a deep understanding of ecological balance, an almost intuitive grasp of living in harmony with nature. The Mongols, perhaps the most renowned of the steppe conquerors, exemplified the zenith of nomadic logistical prowess. Under the leadership of Genghis Khan, they forged an empire that stretched across continents, yet their reliance on herd animals remained unchanged. The Mongol diet was diverse, consisting of mutton, goat, and beef, supplemented by the ubiquitous kumis and dried dairy products. They also understood the importance of foraging, enhancing their meals with wild onions and other plants found along their routes. This adaptability allowed the Mongols to sustain their vast armies, even in hostile territories. In reflecting upon these nomadic masters of the steppe, we are reminded of a profound truth: that survival is not merely about overcoming adversity, but about living in concert with the forces that shape our world. The Scythians, Huns, and Mongols demonstrated that the key to thriving in an unpredictable environment lies in flexibility, resourcefulness, and an intimate knowledge of one's surroundings. Their legacy is a testament to the enduring power of a life lived in harmony with nature, a quiet yet profound mastery of the art of sustenance. As we let these thoughts settle, like the gentle dust of a steppe breeze, we find a serene appreciation for the ingenuity of those who came before us. In the whispering winds of history, their stories continue to echo, reminding us that even the simplest of foods, when born of necessity and crafted with care, can sustain an empire. Amidst the vast tapestry of China's storied past, the Han Dynasty stands out as a beacon of innovation and administration. During this era, spanning from 206 BCE to 220 CE, the Chinese landscape was not only shaped by its emperors and warriors, but also by the quiet yet formidable force of logistics. The success of the Han was not solely due to the prowess of its armies or the wisdom of its scholars, but also the meticulous management of its most essential resource: food. The Han Dynasty's granary system was a marvel of administrative foresight and logistical prowess. Imagine, if you will, vast storehouses filled with the staple grains that fed an empire. These granaries were not just simple structures. They were the beating heart of Han China's supply chain, ensuring that both cities and armies remained resilient, even in the face of adversity. In a land as expansive and varied as China, the ability to store and distribute food effectively was a matter of survival. The Han government established a network of state granaries that functioned as both local reserves and strategic stockpiles. These granaries were meticulously maintained, with officials assigned to oversee their operations. Their role was not merely custodial; they were the guardians of the empire's sustenance, ensuring that the grain was protected from pests, decay, and theft. The sheer scale of the granary system was impressive. Grain was collected as a form of tax, a time-honored tradition that ensured the state could feed its people and its armies. This system of collection and redistribution was vital for maintaining stability. In times of plenty, the granaries swelled with surplus, a comforting buffer against the unpredictability of future harvests. During poor harvests or times of conflict, these reserves could be tapped to avert famine and unrest. The logistics of rice, a staple in the Chinese diet, were particularly intricate. Rice cultivation depended heavily on water management, and the Han Dynasty excelled in this regard. The construction and maintenance of irrigation channels were vital undertakings that allowed rice paddies to flourish. These channels were lifelines, guiding water from rivers and streams to parched fields, ensuring that the crops could grow in abundance. Transporting rice was another challenge altogether. The Han Dynasty's ingenuity extended to its transportation networks, which included a sophisticated system of roads and waterways. Barges laden with rice would glide along canals and rivers, their passage as much a part of the landscape as the fields themselves. Porters, often working in teams, would carry rice overland, a testament to human endurance and determination. It was the management of these resources, rivers, fields, and granaries, that often determined the outcome of wars. Battles may have been fought with swords and arrows, but they were won by those who could sustain their forces over time. In this context, the ability to manage an army's provisions was as crucial as any strategy conceived on the battlefield. The Han's approach to food logistics was not just a matter of practicality, it was a reflection of their understanding of the interconnectedness of society. They recognized that prosperity depended on the seamless operation of this vast network. It was a system that required coordination and trust, a collective effort to ensure that the empire's needs were met. Quietly behind the scenes, the granary officials and the laborers who built and maintained the irrigation systems played their part in this grand orchestration. Their work ensured that the empire remained fed, its people content, and its armies capable of defending the realm or expanding its borders. The Han Dynasty's granary system is a reminder of the delicate balance required to sustain a large population. It is an enduring testament to the importance of logistics in the annals of history. As we drift along this gentle current of reflection, we are reminded of the profound impact that such systems have had on human civilization. They are the quiet underpinnings of empires, the unseen threads that bind together the fabric of history. In the calmness of the night, as thoughts meander through the corridors of time, we can acknowledge the unsung heroes of the Han Dynasty. Not just the warriors and emperors, but the men and women who ensured that the granaries were full, the channels were clear, and the rice arrived at its destination. Their legacy is woven into the very soil of China, a silent testament to the power of organization and foresight. And as we ponder these ancient logistics, we find a resonance in our own world, where the quiet work of many sustains the whole, ensuring that life continues, undisturbed and quietly nourished. In the quiet annals of history, amidst the clattering of swords and the cries of battle, there lies a subtler yet equally vital symphony, the gentle, rhythmic tread of hooves upon ancient roads. These were not merely the beasts of burden, but rather the unsung engines of logistics that propelled armies across continents and through the pages of time. Without them, the grand maneuvers of generals and the sweeping campaigns of empires would have faltered before they began. The ox, with its patient gaze and sturdy frame, was a mainstay in many ancient armies. Known for its endurance rather than speed, an ox could haul a cart laden with supplies over considerable distances, albeit at a leisurely pace. Its strength lay in its ability to pull significant weight, and this made it indispensable for transporting heavy loads, be it grain, weapons, or the camp followers' baggage. An army on the move required a veritable train of such beasts, each one a cornerstone in the delicate balance of supply and demand. Oxen, despite their slow gait, were the dependable workhorses of the ancient world, their presence a reassuring constant. In contrast, the nimble donkey, smaller but no less vital, offered a different set of advantages. Known for its resilience and sure-footedness, the donkey was particularly adept at traversing rugged and uneven terrain where larger animals might struggle. It could carry its own weight and more, transporting smaller yet essential loads such as sacks of grain or bundles of firewood. The donkey's ability to navigate narrow mountain paths and its relatively modest appetite made it a practical choice for armies facing challenging landscapes. Then there were the camels, those curious creatures of the desert, whose very physiology seemed tailored to the harsh conditions of their environment. The camel, with its distinctive hump and long, loping stride, was the lifeline for armies venturing into arid regions where water was as precious as gold. Able to travel great distances with minimal sustenance, camels were the preferred choice for armies traversing vast deserts. Their capacity to carry heavy loads, some as much as 500 kilograms, and their ability to endure long periods without water made them indispensable for campaigns in places where the sun beat relentlessly upon the earth. Mules, the offspring of a horse and a donkey, combined the best traits of both parents. Known for their strength and endurance, mules were highly valued for their ability to carry loads over difficult terrain. They were less stubborn than donkeys and more resilient than horses, making them particularly suited to the varied demands of military logistics. Mules could carry significant loads, often up to 150 kilograms, and were adept at navigating both the gentle slopes and the steep inclines that armies encountered on their marches. The logistics of feeding and caring for these animals were, in themselves, a complex task. Each species had distinct dietary needs, and ensuring they were met was as crucial as providing for the soldiers themselves. An ox might require ample grass and water, while a camel could subsist on a more meager diet, drawing upon its stored reserves of fat. Donkeys and mules, too, had their preferences, and armies had to be adept at sourcing fodder, often relying on local resources to supplement what they carried. It was not merely the number of animals that posed a challenge, but their integration into the broader logistical scheme. A large army could require thousands of animals, each one an integral cog in the machine of war. The interplay between the animals and the human handlers, the careful planning of rest stops, and the management of resources to sustain both man and beast were all critical to the success of a military campaign. The animals, in their quiet perseverance, mirrored the unyielding resolve of the soldiers they accompanied. Together they traversed the dusty roads, crossed rivers, and climbed mountains, their shared journey a testament to the intricate web of logistics that underpinned every ancient army. In their own silent way, these animals were as much a part of the army as the warriors who wielded swords and shields. They carried not only the burdens of war, but also the hopes and ambitions of the empires they served. As we reflect on the vast landscapes they traversed and the burdens they bore, we see in these animals a reflection of humanity's enduring quest to conquer both the land and the challenges it presents. In the quiet moments, when the sun dipped below the horizon and the world was bathed in the soft glow of twilight, one could almost hear the gentle, rhythmic breathing of these ancient engines of logistics, a reminder of their vital role in the unfolding tapestry of history. In the quiet hum of an ancient army's encampment, as the day's labors gave way to the soft embrace of twilight, the heart of the camp would often be marked by the gentle flicker of campfires. These were not just sources of warmth and light, they were the bustling kitchens where the alchemy of transforming simple ingredients into sustaining meals took place. The role of the army kitchen, as humble as it might seem, was as vital to the soldiers as their shields and swords. Consider the campfire, a modest yet indispensable element of military life. It served as the central hub around which soldiers gathered, not only to cook, but also to share stories, laughter, and the camaraderie that made the harshness of their existence more bearable. Around these fires, simple yet nourishing meals were prepared, providing the sustenance needed to march into the unknown at dawn. Portable ovens, often made of clay or metal, were another crucial component of the army kitchen. These small but efficient contrivances allowed for the baking of bread and the heating of soups and stews. Bread, in its many forms, was a staple across ancient armies, providing the necessary carbohydrates to fuel a soldier's exertions. The art of baking on the march required ingenuity, with makeshift ovens constructed from available materials, demonstrating the adaptability and resourcefulness of these ancient cooks. The cooks themselves were an integral part of the military machine. Far from being mere attendants, they were skilled craftworkers, adept at transforming limited resources into meals that could sustain and uplift. Their work was a delicate balance of art and necessity, ensuring that food was not only edible, but also as palatable as possible. They were masters of their craft, turning basic ingredients into something that could offer not just nourishment, but also a semblance of comfort and normality amidst the chaos. Consider for a moment the simple comfort of a pot of hot porridge after a long march, made from grains such as barley or oats and often enriched with whatever ingredients were available, perhaps a splash of wine, a handful of dried fruits, or a pinch of salt. Porridge was more than just a meal. It was a warm embrace, a reminder of home, and a moment of respite. The steam rising from a bowl of porridge represented a connection to the earth and its cycles, a quiet continuity amidst the unpredictability of military life. The preparation of food in these camp kitchens was a collective endeavor. Soldiers would take turns gathering firewood, tending the fires, and assisting the cooks. This shared labor fostered a sense of community and interdependence, an unspoken understanding that each person played a part in the survival of the group. It was a reminder that, while the battlefield may have been a place of individual heroism, it was in these quieter moments that the cohesion and resilience of the army were truly forged. While the meals prepared in these kitchens may have been simple, their impact was profound. Food served as an anchor, grounding the soldiers in the midst of their arduous journeys. It provided not only physical sustenance, but also a sense of stability and routine. In the repetition of daily meals, there was a rhythm, a reliable cadence that offered comfort and reassurance. Moreover, the smells and tastes of these meals, however modest, were imbued with memories and associations. The aroma of roasting grains or simmering stews could transport a soldier back to his village, to the warmth of a family kitchen, to the familiar and the beloved. In this way, the army kitchen was a bridge between worlds, linking the past with the present, the personal with the collective. As night deepened and the campfires burned low, a sense of tranquility would often settle over the encampment. The day's exertions faded into the background, replaced by the gentle murmurs of conversation and the soft rustle of the night breeze. In these quiet moments, the significance of the army kitchen became clear. It was a testament to the human capacity for adaptation and resilience, a reminder that even amidst the rigors of military life, there was room for nurturing and nourishment. The army kitchen, with its fires and ovens, its cooks and soldiers, was a microcosm of the larger endeavor, a quiet yet essential part of the machinery that sustained armies across the ages. It was here that the physical and emotional needs of the soldiers were met, where the bonds of camaraderie were strengthened, and where the essence of what it meant to be human was preserved, even in the most trying of circumstances. As we reflect on this aspect of ancient military life, let us pause to appreciate the quiet heroism of those who toiled in these kitchens. Their contributions, though often overlooked, were as crucial as those of the warriors on the front lines. For in feeding the body, they also fed the spirit, ensuring that the army could march forward into the dawn, united and sustained by the humble yet profound power of a shared meal. In the quiet rhythm of an army on the march, foraging emerges as a skill both ancient and necessary, a subtle dance with the landscapes traversed. It is a practice born from the need to supplement supplies and adapt to the unpredictability of campaign conditions. As soldiers moved through varied terrains, they became temporary residents of meadows and forests, rivers and coasts, each offering its own bounty and challenges. Imagine, if you will, the soft morning light filtering through the leaves of an unfamiliar forest. The soldiers, eyes scanning the undergrowth, are searching for wild plants, those hidden treasures of nutrition. Dandelion greens, nettles, and wild garlic are gathered with care, their presence a quiet testament to nature's generosity. Yet this pursuit requires both knowledge and caution. The line between nourishment and danger is thin, for many plants wear the guise of safety while harboring toxins. The ancient Greeks, for instance, knew well the perils of hemlock, its delicate white flowers belying a deadly nature. In the gentle flow of a nearby stream, the promise of fish glimmers. Fishing becomes both a solitary and communal effort, a moment of peace amidst the demands of military life. Soldiers craft simple lines and hooks, perhaps from bone or metal scraps, casting them into the water with hope and patience. The catch, when it comes, is a small victory, a fresh addition to their otherwise monotonous diet. And yet, not every river or lake is familiar. Some teem with life, while others offer little more than a reflection of the sky. Hunting, too, fits into this tapestry of survival. It is a skill honed over centuries, requiring stealth and respect for the animals that roam the land. Deer, boar, and small game are pursued with bows and arrows, snares and traps. Each successful hunt is a delicate balance of skill and fortune, the meat providing vital protein for those who walk many miles each day. But hunting is not without its risks. Unfamiliar territories may harbor predators or lead soldiers unwittingly into the domain of local tribes, their presence a potential spark for conflict. The challenge of foraging lies not only in finding food, but in recognizing what is safe. The soldiers, far from home, must rely on local guides or their own accumulated knowledge. Missteps can lead to illness or worse, and so every berry, every mushroom is examined with care. In this way, the act of foraging becomes a quiet lesson in humility, a recognition of the land's power and mystery. In some regions, the landscape itself dictates the method and success of foraging. The arid steppes offer little in the way of plant life, turning the soldiers focused to their herds and the sparse game that crosses their path. In contrast, the lush valleys of temperate zones burst with opportunity, each season bringing forth its own array of edible plants and animals. The soldiers learn to read these landscapes like a book, each chapter revealing new insights into survival. Foraging is also an exercise in community. As soldiers spread out to search for food, they share their findings, pooling resources to ensure that all are sustained. This communal effort fosters a sense of unity, a reminder that even in the midst of war, survival depends on cooperation. The simple act of sharing a foraged meal becomes a ritual of connection, a moment of respite in the relentless march of an army. Despite the inherent risks, foraging offers a unique reward, a deeper connection to the natural world. Soldiers become attuned to the subtle signs of life around them, the rustle of leaves indicating a hidden plant, the ripple of water betraying the presence of fish. In this way, they develop a quiet respect for the ecosystems they traverse, recognizing their role not as conquerors, but as temporary inhabitants, reliant on the land's goodwill. As we reflect on the practice of foraging, we are reminded of the delicate interplay between humanity and nature. It is a relationship built on necessity and reverence, a reminder that even the mightiest armies are ultimately dependent on the quiet abundance of the earth. And so, as the soldiers continue their march, they carry with them not only weapons and armor, but the knowledge that survival is rooted in understanding and respecting the world around them. In this gentle exploration of foraging, we see a microcosm of the larger journey of armies and empires, of individuals seeking sustenance and connection. It is a reminder that in the grand theater of history, the quiet, unassuming acts often carry the greatest weight, shaping the course of events in ways both visible and unseen. As the sun sets over the distant hills, the soldiers, nourished by the land, find rest, prepared to face another day. In the quiet murmur of history, the clatter of swords and the chants of marching feet often eclipse the softer sounds of the past. Yet there in the background lies a story equally vital, the gentle hum of artisans shaping clay, weaving fibers, and stitching leather. These were the craftsmen and craftswomen who did not wield weapons but tools, whose creations held the sustenance of entire armies. Imagine, if you will, the ancient world, where the art of container making was not merely a craft but a cornerstone of survival. Pottery, baskets, and leather bags were the silent sentinels of the ancient logistical machine, ensuring that food could be preserved and transporting over vast distances. Without these humble vessels, the very concept of an army on the move would have been as fleeting as the morning mist. The amphora, a term that evokes images of sunlit Mediterranean shores, was more than a decorative relic. These two-handled clay jars, with their elegant, elongated necks, were the workhorses of ancient storage. They were used to transport oil, wine, water, and grains. Each amphora was lovingly crafted, its clay molded by hands that understood the delicate balance between form and function. The clay, once shaped, was fired in kilns that glowed like the embers of 1,000 campfires, hardening the vessels to withstand the rigors of travel. Pottery in its myriad forms was central to the preservation of food. The porous nature of clay, when unglazed, allowed for the natural exchange of gases, which could aid in the slow maturation of its contents, such as the fermentation of wine. When glazed, these vessels could be sealed tight, their contents safeguarded against the elements. The amphorae and their kin were more than containers. They were guardians of nourishment, ensuring that armies could march on, fed and fortified. But clay was not the only material pressed into service. Baskets, woven from reeds, rushes, and other natural fibers, offered a lightweight alternative for storage and transport. The weaving of a basket was a dance of dexterity, the fingers of the craftsperson moving with a rhythm as timeless as the seasons. Each basket told a story of its maker, of the landscape from which its materials were drawn, and of the purpose it was intended to serve. These baskets, while less robust than their clay counterparts, provided flexibility. They could be used to carry everything from freshly harvested grains to the delicate fruits of the field. Their construction allowed for breathability, which was essential for keeping produce fresh over longer periods. Indeed, the very act of weaving a basket was a meditation on the interconnectivity of life, each strand supporting the next, much like the individuals in an army relying on one another for survival. And then there were the leather bags, stitched with care from the hides of animals. Leatherworking was an ancient art, one that required both skill and patience. The hides had to be tanned, a process involving natural tannins derived from bark and leaves, which transformed the raw skin into a durable, flexible material. Once prepared, the leather was cut and sewn, often with sinew or thin strips of leather, to create bags that were as versatile as they were resilient. Leather bags were particularly valued for their water resistance and durability. They could hold liquids, grains, and even serve as makeshift pillows or padding when needed. The scent of leather, earthy and rich, was a constant companion to soldiers, a reminder of the animals that played their part in the grand tapestry of survival. In the grand theatres of war, where battles decided the fate of empires, these containers played a role as crucial as any general or warrior. They were the unsung heroes of logistics, the quiet custodians of sustenance. Without them, the armies of Rome, Greece, Persia, and beyond would have been adrift, their strength sapped by hunger and thirst. Reflecting on these ancient crafts, one cannot help but marvel at the ingenuity and resourcefulness of those who came before us. Their creations, born of necessity, were imbued with a beauty that transcended their function. Each amphora, basket, and leather bag was a testament to human creativity, a bridge between the realms of art and survival. As we drift through the corridors of history, let us pause to appreciate the quiet artistry of container making. In the gentle curves of an amphora, the intricate weave of a basket, and the supple fold of a leather bag, we find echoes of a past that whisper to us of endurance, adaptability, and the timeless need to nourish both body and spirit. In the quiet stillness of a world shaped by the needs of those who lived long ago, there is perhaps no element more quietly essential than water. It is the most basic of life's necessities, a simple molecule of hydrogen and oxygen, yet its importance to the ancient armies cannot be overstated. Water, ever elusive and often taken for granted, was the most difficult supply of all to secure and maintain. It dictated the rhythm of marches, influenced the planning of campaigns, and quietly loomed over every decision made by military leaders. The daily water needs of an ancient army were immense, a logistical challenge that rivaled the provisioning of food. Each soldier required several liters of water per day, not just for quenching thirst, but also for cooking, cleaning, and even tending to wounds. The animals accompanying these armies, oxen, horses, and mules, demanded even more, their great thirsts needing to be sated to keep the wheels of war moving forward. This silent yet insistent demand for water shaped the very geography of military campaigns, often determining where battles could be fought and where they could not. Finding water was an art as much as a science. The ancients, with their keen eyes and deep understanding of the natural world, learned to read the landscape much like a book. The presence of certain plants, the flight patterns of birds, or the subtle shifts in the terrain could all hint at the proximity of a water source. Rivers and streams, the lifelines of ancient lands, were often the preferred sources, their flowing waters not just a necessity, but a reassuring presence in an otherwise harsh environment. However, these sources could not always be relied upon, especially during droughts or in arid regions, and so armies had to be prepared to dig, to seek, and to discover water in less obvious places. Wells, those patient and enduring structures, became vital. The construction of a well was no small task. It required knowledge, effort, and time, resources that were sometimes in short supply. Yet, once built, a well could sustain an army for days, even weeks. The act of drawing water from a well was a communal activity, a moment of respite and reflection amid the chaos of military life. Soldiers would gather around, waiting their turn, the sound of water splashing into buckets offering a soothing rhythm that contrasted with the harshness of their surroundings. In times of scarcity, ingenuity was paramount. Rainwater was collected and stored in large cisterns, simple but effective systems that captured the sky's gift and held it against the dryness of the land. In places where natural sources were absent, armies would create their own, digging channels from distant rivers or constructing reservoirs that could hold enough water to last through the inevitable dry spells. Beyond the practical, water carried a spiritual significance. For many ancient cultures, water was a symbol of life and renewal, a sacred element that cleansed and purified. This reverence extended into military life, where rituals and ceremonies often centered around water. Before battles, soldiers might wash themselves in a nearby stream, a silent prayer for protection and strength. The sound of water, whether a distant cascade or the gentle ripple of a stream, was a reminder of home, of peace, and of the continuity of life amid the impermanence of war. The challenges of securing water were compounded by the unpredictability of the elements. A sudden rainstorm could transform a dry landscape into a muddy quagmire, while an unexpected drought might leave an army stranded, desperate, and vulnerable. It was in these moments that the skill and foresight of military planners were truly tested. They learned to adapt, to anticipate, and to find solutions where none seemed possible. As we reflect on the ancient soldiers' reliance on water, it is worth considering the quiet sounds that accompanied their daily routines. The gentle clink of metal cups dipping into a stream, the soft patter of raindrops on canvas tents, the rhythmic creaking of ropes as buckets were lowered into wells. All these sounds formed a kind of music, a serene backdrop to the lives of those who marched long ago. In this way, water, though often silent and unseen, played a central role in the life of an army. It was a constant companion, a silent ally, and a reminder of the interconnectedness of all things. As we listen to the echoes of history, we find that the sound of water, gentle and persistent, continues to speak to us, offering a moment of calm in a world that is ever-changing. So as we drift into rest, let us carry with us the soothing memory of water, the most difficult supply of all, yet the most enduring, the most life-giving. In the quiet recesses of history, where the clashing of swords and the galloping of horses often drown out softer tales, lies the story of famine on the march. Armies, those immense machines of human ambition and conquest, have always been at the mercy of their stomachs. It is here, in the realm of scarcity, that discipline, so carefully nurtured in times of plenty, begins to crumble under the weight of empty bellies and unfulfilled needs. Picture, if you will, an army halted in its tracks, not by the adversary's strength, but by the silent, insidious enemy of hunger. The once orderly ranks, bound by codes of conduct and honor, start to fray. The soldiers, whose spirits were once buoyed by the promise of victory and plunder, now find their thoughts consumed by the gnawing emptiness within. One cannot discuss the trials of famine on campaign without recalling the plight of Napoleon's Grande Armée during the infamous Russian campaign of 1812. While this tale stands closer to modern memory, its lessons echo those of antiquity. As the army pushed deeper into the vast Russian expanse, supply lines stretched precariously thin, and the already meager rations dwindled further. The soldiers, who had set out with such pomp and confidence, found themselves battling not only the Russian forces, but the relentless advance of starvation and the biting cold. It is in these moments of scarcity that the psychological transformation within an army takes its most profound toll. Hunger does not merely weaken the body, it erodes the very fabric of morale and obedience. With each missed meal, the soldiers' thoughts drift from discipline to desperation, from unity to self-preservation. What was once a collective force with a shared purpose becomes a gathering of individuals, each one consumed by the singular need to survive. History offers many such instances where the lack of food became the fiercest adversary. During the Peloponnesian War, the Athenian forces found themselves besieged on the island of Sphacteria. Surrounded by Spartan troops and cut off from their supply ships, the Athenians faced the grim reality of starvation. The psychological strain was immense, as once-proud hoplites were reduced to foraging for whatever sustenance they could find amidst the sparse terrain. The hunger gnawed at their resolve, and the mighty Athenians were eventually forced to surrender, not to the sword, but to the absence of sustenance. In ancient China, the annals of history recall the siege of the city of Xiangyang during the Song Dynasty. For months, the Mongol forces encircled the city, cutting off all supply routes. Inside the walls, the defenders and inhabitants faced the slow, cruel descent into famine. The psychological impact was severe, as hope waned with each passing day. The city's fall was as much a testament to the psychological warfare of starvation as it was to the Mongols' military prowess. The transition from discipline to desperation is a gradual one, marked not by sudden outbursts but by a creeping erosion of order. Initially, the soldiers might attempt to maintain their routines, clinging to the semblance of normalcy. Yet, as hunger deepens, routines falter, and the focus shifts inexorably towards survival. In such times, the rules of engagement alter subtly, as soldiers might turn to foraging or, in more dire circumstances, even pilfer from local populations or their own supply caches. The Roman legions, famed for their discipline and logistical prowess, were not immune to the risks of famine. During the siege of Numantia in 133 BCE, the Roman forces, despite their advanced supply systems, found themselves on the brink of starvation. The Celtic defenders, well aware of the Romans' reliance on their extensive supply lines, targeted these lifelines with relentless precision. And for the Romans, the psychological strain was palpable, as the fear of starvation pressed heavily upon the minds of even the most hardened centurions. Starvation on campaign is a leveler, reducing even the most formidable armies to a state of vulnerability. It demands not only physical resilience, but an extraordinary mental fortitude to withstand the pressures it exerts. The leaders, too, are caught in this web of desperation, as they must balance the immediate needs of their troops against the strategic imperatives of their campaign. Decisions that once came easily now weigh heavily, as the consequences of each choice are magnified by the specter of hunger. Yet in the midst of such adversity, there are stories of remarkable endurance and ingenuity. The Greek mercenaries of the 10,000, chronicled by Xenophon, found themselves stranded in hostile Persian territory after the death of their leaders. Cut off from their supply lines and surrounded by enemy forces, they faced the daunting task of marching thousands of miles to safety. Their journey, marked by scarcity and hardship, stands as a testament to the human spirit's capacity to endure even when faced with near-certain starvation. As we reflect on these tales of famine on campaign, we are reminded of the delicate balance upon which military success so often rests. The grand strategies and battlefield tactics that capture the imagination are but one part of the story. Beneath the surface lies the quieter, yet no less critical, struggle to keep an army fed and functioning. It is a reminder that, in the theatre of war, the battle against hunger is as fierce and consequential as any fought with weapons. In the silent march of history, where the echoes of past conflicts linger, the stories of armies facing famine are a poignant reminder of vulnerability. They stand as quiet testaments to the resilience required when discipline gives way to desperation, and survival becomes the ultimate victory. The sound of siege warfare was unlike the clamor of battles fought in open fields. It was a slow, creeping tension, marked by the muffled thud of digging, the distant rumble of siege engines, and the quiet desperation of those trapped within the walls. Both besiegers and defenders faced a shared enemy far more relentless than any army, the unyielding passage of time, and with it, the strain on their food supplies. Imagine, if you will, the ancient fortress of Masada, perched high on a plateau above the Judean desert. The year is 73 CE, and the Roman legions have laid siege to this last stronghold of Jewish resistance. The defenders, zealots, have barricaded themselves against the vast might of Rome, their hopes as high as the cliffs that encircle them. Yet with every passing day, their stores of grain and water dwindled, echoing the eternal struggle of those besieged, to outlast the enemy or succumb to starvation. Masada's defenders had prepared well. They were not naive to the necessities of siege survival. Long before the Roman legions appeared on the horizon, they had stockpiled food, carefully rationing it to last as long as possible. The ingenuity of their cisterns, collecting the rare desert rains, spoke to their forethought. Yet, no matter how well prepared, the siege's passage of time was inexorable. Every grain consumed, every drop of water sipped, brought them closer to the brink. The Romans, too, faced their challenges. Besieging an impregnable fortress on a mountaintop required a Herculean effort not just in manpower, but in maintaining their own supply lines across the harsh desert. They built camps, constructed a massive ramp to breach the walls, all while ensuring their soldiers had enough bread, olive oil, and wine to keep them in fighting form. The Roman ability to organize and sustain such a siege was as much a testament to their logistical prowess as it was to their military strength. Let us now travel to the lush landscapes of Gaul, to the siege of Alesia in 52 BCE. Here, Julius Caesar faced the formidable Gallic leader Vercingetorix. The Gallic stronghold was surrounded by not one, but two Roman fortifications, a double ring designed to both encircle the enemy and protect against outside relief forces. Caesar's legions, though adept at conquest, found themselves in a delicate dance of supply and demand. Their own lines stretched thin, reliant on foraging and the good fortune of local harvests. Alesia's defenders, like those at Masada, rationed their supplies with grim determination. The Gauls were hardy and resourceful, their diet supplemented by what little they could forage from the besieged countryside. Yet, as the siege wore on, the scarcity of food gnawed at them, a silent spectre that sapped morale and strength alike. It was a race against time. Could they hold out long enough for reinforcements to arrive, or would hunger force surrender? In both Masada and Alesia, we find echoes of a common theme: the quiet, persistent pressure of sustaining an army, whether inside or outside the walls. The besiegers often relied on superior numbers and resources, but their task was not without peril. For every day spent waiting for the enemy to yield was a day spent consuming their own supplies, a day closer to the moment when they might be forced to abandon the siege for lack of sustenance. Let us turn now to the east, where ancient Chinese sieges tell their own tales of endurance and resourcefulness. In the vast tapestry of Chinese history, cities like Chengdu and Xiangyang became theaters of protracted sieges, where the balance of power often lay in the granaries rather than in the strength of arms. Chinese military treatises, such as Sun Tzu's The Art of War, advised generals to avoid besieging walled cities unless absolutely necessary, a recognition of the logistical strain such operations imposed. The defenders in these sieges relied heavily on their knowledge of local agriculture, their stores of rice carefully guarded against both the enemy outside and potential treachery within. Siege warfare in China was as much about the art of negotiation and deception as it was about brute force. The ability to sow discord among the besiegers, to bide time and conserve resources, could turn the tide of a siege as effectively as any army. In all these tales, we see the delicate balance of supply and demand that defined siege warfare. It was a test of endurance, patience, and above all, the quiet resilience of those who faced the specter of starvation with fortitude. The stories from Masada, Alesia, and ancient China remind us that while the clash of swords might decide battles, the silent struggle of logistics often determined the outcome of wars. As we reflect on these historical sieges, we are reminded of the quiet courage of those who endured them, both the besiegers and the besieged. Their stories speak to the enduring human spirit, the ability to adapt and survive in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. In the end, the whisper of supply lines, the rustle of rationed grain, and the silent prayers for rain tell a tale as compelling as any battle cry. Whether that ever-changing tapestry of the sky has been both a silent partner and a formidable foe to armies throughout history. It shapes landscapes subtly, yet its influence on the course of human events is profound. As we delve into the delicate interplay between weather and the sustenance of ancient armies, let us meander through the quiet corridors of time, where the whisper of a breeze or the gentle patter of rain could alter the fate of thousands. Consider the serene image of a field under a clear azure sky, where golden grains sway gently with the wind, a scene of abundance and promise. Yet this idyllic picture could dissolve swiftly with the onset of a storm. Rain, often a blessing for crops, turns to a curse when it lingers too long upon harvested fields. In ancient times, grain was the staple, the lifeblood of armies. But moisture, that innocuous element, could seep into stores of grain, rendering them moldy and inedible. We can imagine the quiet panic of quartermasters, their minds racing against the relentless ticking of time, as they endeavored to salvage what they could from the damp clutches of ruin. The rain, with its gentle persistence, was not the only adversary. Heat, that relentless companion of the sun, posed its own set of challenges. In the blistering embrace of summer, meat, a valued source of protein, was prone to spoilage. Without the luxury of modern refrigeration, ancient armies relied on the time-honored methods of preservation, salting, smoking, drying. Yet, under a relentless sun, even these methods could falter. The quiet desperation of a cook, surveying the tainted provisions, speaks to the constant battle against nature's more unforgiving moods. The ancients, wise in their ways, understood the rhythm of the seasons, a knowledge passed down through generations. Timing, they learned, was everything. Campaigns were often timed with an agricultural calendar in mind, a tacit acknowledgement of the power nature wielded over human endeavor. Spring and autumn, with their milder climates, were favored seasons for warfare. These were periods when the earth was generous, and supplies could be gathered or foraged with relative ease. Winter, with its biting cold and scarcity, and summer, with its oppressive heat, were times for caution, for a well-timed strategic pause. Yet, despite their understanding, armies were not always masters of their fates. A sudden, unseasonal storm could halt an advance, turning roads into quagmires and rendering transport of supplies a Sisyphean task. Imagine the quiet frustration of a general, his plans laid out with meticulous care, only to be thwarted by a capricious turn in the weather. His soldiers, huddled under makeshift covers, would wait for the skies to clear, their spirits dampened by more than the rain. Moreover, the ancient world saw innovations born of necessity, as people sought to mitigate the whims of weather. The Romans, for instance, built their roads with an eye towards durability, ensuring they could withstand the rigors of rain and the weight of supply carts. Their granaries were constructed with ventilation in mind, an early nod to the importance of airflow in keeping moisture at bay. Such quiet ingenuity, a testament to human resilience, allowed armies to march on, despite the heavens' occasional discontent. Indeed, weather's influence extended beyond the immediate concerns of supply. It dictated broader strategies, shaping the very nature of warfare itself. Armies learned to adapt, to move with the seasons, to anticipate nature's moods. In this dance between man and nature, a delicate balance was maintained. The weather, with its quiet power, was both a guide and a guardian, reminding humanity of its place within the grand tapestry of life. As we reflect upon these ancient struggles, there is something soothing in the knowledge that, despite the challenges armies endured, they learned to bend with the wind, to shelter from the storm, to find warmth in the cold. In the gentle rustle of leaves, the distant roll of thunder, the soft patter of raindrops, we hear echoes of those who came before us, their stories woven into the fabric of time. In this symphony of weather and warfare, we find a quiet lesson in humility and perseverance. The ancients teach us that while we may not control the weather, we can learn to walk alongside it, adapting, surviving, thriving. As we drift into the embrace of sleep, let us carry with us the gentle reminder that, like those who marched before, we too can find our way through the storms of life, guided by the timeless rhythm of the seasons. In the midst of tumultuous campaigns and the clamor of battles, there lies a quieter and more insidious adversary that ancient armies had to contend with: disease. In particular, diseases stemming from the very food and water meant to sustain them. It's a curious thought that despite the prowess of warriors and the strategy of generals, it was often the invisible armies of bacteria and parasites that decided the fate of many a campaign. As we imagine ourselves alongside those ancient soldiers, it becomes clear that an army's health was as fragile as the supplies that nourished it. The essential truth was that more soldiers succumbed to illness than to the sword, a fact that underscores the crucial importance of safe food and water. The challenges of maintaining hygiene and ensuring the purity of provisions were daunting. Without the knowledge of germ theory or the benefits of modern sanitation, armies were at the mercy of the microscopic world. Consider dysentery, a particularly dreaded condition, which was as much a part of military life as marching or combat. The affliction, marked by severe diarrhea, dehydration, and weakness, could swiftly incapacitate an entire unit. Imagine the Roman legions, famed for their discipline and strength, brought low by a disease they couldn't see or understand. The cause, often a bacterial or amoebic infection, spread through contaminated food or water, was an ever-present threat. The methods of food preservation and water storage, despite being ingenious for their time, were not foolproof. Salted meats and dried grains, while lasting longer than fresh provisions, were not immune to spoilage. And the water, drawn from rivers or stored in large earthenware jars, could easily become a breeding ground for pathogens if not properly managed. One can picture soldiers, exhausted from the day's march, drinking deeply from a stream, unaware that it carried invisible dangers. The symptoms of foodborne illnesses were not just a matter of discomfort. For an army on the move, they were debilitating. A soldier weakened by disease could not carry his equipment, stand guard, or fight effectively. The chain of command, the very fabric of military cohesion, could unravel swiftly if illness spread unchecked. This vulnerability forced commanders to consider not just the strategic placement of troops, but also the logistics of maintaining their health. The ancient Greeks and Romans, despite their advancements, were acutely aware of these risks. They developed rudimentary practices, such as boiling water and fermenting foods, to mitigate some dangers. Fermentation, for instance, not only preserved foods but also altered them in ways that could reduce harmful bacteria. Yet these methods were not always sufficient, particularly under the strain of prolonged campaigns. In the damp and crowded conditions of a military camp, where sanitation was primitive at best, the spread of disease was almost inevitable. Latrines were often little more than shallow pits, and waste disposal was haphazard. Such environments were ripe for outbreaks, and once an illness took hold, it could spread with alarming speed. The soldiers shared living quarters, communal eating, and close proximity during marches all facilitated the rapid transmission of infections. Reflect for a moment on how these invisible threats shaped the course of history. The sieges where armies were trapped in unsanitary conditions for months on end, the forced retreats not because of enemy action, but due to the ravages of disease. The morale of troops, their ability to fight, and even the outcome of entire wars could hinge on the presence of a clean water source. These quiet battles against disease underscore the broader theme that logistics, often overshadowed by the drama of battle, were pivotal to the success of military campaigns. The strategic genius of a commander was of little use if his troops were too ill to hold their swords. Thus, the ancient quartermasters and camp followers who managed supplies and sought to maintain some semblance of hygiene were unsung heroes in their own right. The historical records often speak of great leaders and epic battles, yet the chroniclers knew well the toll taken by disease. Accounts from the Peloponnesian War describe how Athens was ravaged more by plague than by Spartan spears. Similarly, during the Crusades, it was not uncommon for entire contingents to be decimated by illness long before they saw the battlefield. In our quiet reflection, we might consider how the lessons of the past remain relevant today. The necessity of clean water and safe food, the importance of sanitation, and the understanding of how quickly disease can spread in crowded conditions are all concerns that transcend time. They remind us that while the tools and technologies have evolved, the fundamental needs of a soldier, and indeed all humans, remain unchanged. As we drift into the gentle embrace of sleep, let us remember the countless individuals who stood against an unseen foe, battling not with weapons, but with knowledge, resilience, and the timeless human spirit to survive against the odds. In their quiet struggles, we find echoes of our own efforts to manage the delicate balance between nature and nurture, health and hardship. In the hushed dawn of ancient warfare, the quiet truth of geography often dictated the ambitions of empires. When we think of armies, our minds might first picture the clashing of swords or the thunder of hooves, yet behind these dramatic scenes lay the subtle rhythm of logistics. The real constraints were not always the bravery of soldiers or the might of their leaders, but rather the simple, elemental truth of how far bread and barley could travel. Picture a map unrolled upon a wooden table in the tent of a general. The inked lines of rivers, the contours of mountains, and the faint sketched paths of known roads, each feature silently whispering the limits of conquest. For ancient armies, the distance they could venture was often dictated by the weight of their provisions and the strength of their supply lines. In an era absent of refrigerated trucks or aircraft, the logistical challenge was immense. Food, after all, is not merely a necessity, it is a cumbersome and perishable one. The soldiers of antiquity consumed thousands of calories each day, and the beasts that accompanied them, the pack animals and cavalry, required even more. Every additional mile from home increased the difficulty of providing for these needs. The Roman legions, for instance, were renowned for their engineering prowess, constructing roads that spanned continents. These thoroughfares, however, were not just for the swift march of soldiers. They were the arteries through which flowed the lifeblood of grain and salted meat. A legion on the move was a meticulously planned venture, a symphony of logistics. Each campaign required careful calculation. How long before the bread goes stale? How far before the salt pork runs out? And where, along the way, could more be procured? Yet even the mighty Rome had limits. The further they pushed into unfamiliar territories, the more the logistical strain grew. Local resources could sometimes be commandeered or purchased, but this was a gamble on the fertility of lands and the goodwill or subjugation of local populations. The Roman conquest of Britain, for example, stretched their supply lines across treacherous waters, each wave a reminder of the fragility of their reach. Elsewhere, the Greeks, with their city-states nestled by the sea, often chose to fight close to home. Their campaigns were seasonal, dictated by the agricultural calendar. Winter campaigns were rare, not just because of the harsher weather, but because the land yielded little during these months. Soldiers were needed at home to tend the fields, a reminder that the soldier and the farmer were often one and the same. Even Alexander the Great, whose campaigns stretched from Greece to the edges of India, understood the delicate balance of supply. His armies moved with a speed that astonished, yet this velocity was often born of necessity. His ability to swiftly capture the granaries and storehouses of the lands he entered was as crucial as his victories in battle. The faster he moved, the less time his supply lines had to stretch thin. Yet this breakneck pace was a double-edged sword, for it left little margin for error or delay. The Persian Empire, on the other hand, with its royal road, exemplified another approach. Their system of waystations and supply depots created a network that facilitated movement over vast distances. This infrastructure allowed for the rapid dispatch of resources, an early precursor to the logistics hubs of the modern world. But even this impressive system had its boundaries, confined by the geography it traversed and the enduring challenge of maintaining such a network. The nomadic tribes of the steppes, like the Scythians and later the Mongols, had mastered a different kind of logistical art. Their armies carried their sustenance with them in the form of herds. This mobile pantry allowed them to roam vast distances with fewer constraints. Yet even they were bound by the needs of their animals, which required pastures and water. Their fluid strategy was both an advantage and a necessity, dictated by the landscape they inhabited. As we reflect on these ancient strategies, it becomes clear that the geography of supply played a profound, if often silent, role in shaping the map of human history. Empires did not merely expand until they were defeated by a stronger foe. They often halted where the grain could no longer follow. The reach of an army was seldom just a measure of its might. It was a testament to the quiet, persistent force of logistics. In this way, the boundaries of ancient empires were drawn not just by the sword, but by the sack of grain, the amphora of wine, and the humble jar of olives. The whisper of supply lines, in its own way, carved the edges of the known world. As we drift into contemplation, we might consider how, in the grand tapestry of history, the quiet work of quartermasters and the silent march of mules shaped the destinies of nations. In the quiet corridors of history, where the sound of marching boots fades to a gentle shuffle, the art of war has often been dictated not by the clash of swords, but by the humbler details of sustenance. It is here, in the logistical backbone of military campaigns, that we find the subtle yet profound influence of food shaping strategy. Consider, if you will, Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian general whose audacious journey over the Alps in 218 BC remains one of the most remarkable feats of military endeavor. The very thought of elephants, ponderous and majestic, navigating narrow mountain paths is enough to stir the imagination. Yet beneath this daring spectacle lay a logistical conundrum: how to feed such an eclectic army in the harsh, unforgiving terrain of snow-capped peaks. Hannibal's strategy was not merely about the audacity of crossing the Alps, but hinged critically on the ability to sustain his troops in hostile environments. He orchestrated a campaign of calculated risks, where the procurement of food was as much a weapon as the spear. Scouts were sent ahead to secure local provisions, to negotiate with or intimidate local tribes into cooperation. His army carried what they could, but the reality of such a journey meant relying heavily on foraging and the goodwill, or fear, of those they encountered. Each meal was a small victory, each cache of grain a step closer to Rome. As we turn our gaze to Julius Caesar, another master of military logistics, we observe a man who understood the quiet power of preparation. During his Gallic wars, Caesar's meticulous planning ensured that his legions were well provisioned, allowing them to march swiftly and strike decisively. His campaigns were a testament to the idea that an army's effectiveness was intrinsically linked to its supply lines. Caesar was known to establish supply depots along his routes, ensuring that his men never marched hungry. One particularly illustrative moment occurred during the siege of Alesia in 52 BC, where Caesar's strategic acumen was on full display. Faced with the challenge of besieging a fortified hilltop while being outnumbered by a relief force, Caesar constructed an elaborate system of fortifications and supply lines. His ability to maintain a steady flow of provisions to his troops while cutting off those of his enemies was a decisive factor in the eventual Roman victory. Here we see how food, or the lack thereof, became a pivotal element in the strategy, as starvation began to sap the strength and morale of the besieged Gauls. Yet it is not only in these grand narratives that food shaped strategy, but also in the quieter, everyday decisions of military leaders. The choice of when to engage in battle was often dictated by the availability of supplies. Armies would avoid combat when provisions were low, opting instead to retreat or delay until their logistical situation improved. This underlying dependence on sustenance created a rhythm to military campaigns, a cadence as vital as the drumbeat of war. Even the great Persian Empire, with its vast network of roads and waystations, understood the strategic importance of food. The royal road facilitated not just the movement of troops, but also the swift transport of supplies. The Persians, much like the Romans, appreciated that an army's reach was ultimately limited by its supply chain. The ability to project power over vast distances was contingent upon the steady, reliable flow of provisions. In each of these examples, we glimpse the delicate balance between ambition and logistics. The grand strategies of generals were underpinned by the humble yet essential task of feeding their men. The The quiet art of ensuring that every soldier had enough to eat could dictate the outcome of battles, influence the morale of troops, and ultimately shape the course of history. As we reflect on these tales from the past, it becomes clear that the annals of military history are interwoven with the threads of logistics. The fates of empires were often decided not on the battlefield, but in the fields, farms, and granaries that sustained their armies. This quiet truth, often overshadowed by the drama of warfare, reminds us that the true strength of an army lies as much in its supply lines as in its soldiers. And so, we find a gentle lesson in these historical narratives, that strategy is not solely the domain of the bold and the brave, but also of those who understand the profound simplicity of sustenance. In the quiet nights of planning, where maps are spread and routes are plotted, it is the knowledge of where the next meal will come from that often guides the hand of destiny. In the quiet rhythm of ancient life, the economy thrummed like a heartbeat, steady and essential, yet often overlooked. The soldiers, clad in armor and marching with purpose, drew the eye and the admiration of the populace. But it was the unseen multitude, the farmers and laborers, who sustained the beating heart of an army on the move. Let us wander through the fields and granaries, viewing the silent diligence of those who turned the soil, sowed the seeds, and reaped the harvests that would feed the warriors of empires. In the vast expanses of fields, farmers toiled with a profound sense of duty, knowing that their labor was not merely for their sustenance, but for the strength of their nation. The economy of ancient societies was deeply intertwined with the agricultural calendar, and the rhythm of the seasons dictated the availability of food. An abundant harvest meant more than just full bellies. It meant the potential for military campaigns, for armies well-fed could march with vigor and confidence. Taxes in this agrarian world were often levied in grain and produce. The very lifeblood of these communities was measured in bushels and amphorae, collected and stored by the state for the sustenance of its military forces. This practice was as much a part of the civic landscape as the temples and forums that dotted the cities. The granaries, with their cool, dark interiors, served as the treasury of the realm, holding the wealth that would sustain both peace and war. The Roman Empire, with its extensive network of territories, provides a vivid example of how deeply rooted agriculture was in the military apparatus. The annona militaris, a tax in kind, required provinces to deliver vast quantities of grain to feed the legions. This system was not merely an economic transaction, but a strategic imperative, ensuring that the Roman soldiers, stationed at far-flung frontiers, were never too far from the sustenance they needed to maintain the Pax Romana. Yet the economic weight of feeding armies was not borne solely by the state or its coffers. The hidden labor of rural communities, often overlooked in the grand narratives of history, played a crucial role. These were the hands that plowed the earth, tended the livestock, and gathered the harvests. Their work was unglamorous and uncelebrated, yet without it, the military enterprises of great empires would have faltered. Consider the humble mule driver, guiding his laden beasts along dusty roads. His was a life of quiet perseverance, moving the essential supplies from fields to camps. Each step taken by a mule was a step towards sustaining the soldiers who defended or expanded the empire. The leather straps and wooden carts, the creaking of wheels and the rhythmic clop of hooves, were the sounds of an economy in motion, often unheard amid the clamor of battle. The economic implications of feeding armies extended beyond mere sustenance. They shaped the very strategies of war and the policies of peace. A wise commander understood that the ability to feed his troops determined the scope and duration of his campaigns. The grain stores were as vital as the armories, the bakers as essential as the blacksmiths. This understanding of logistics and supply was a hallmark of successful military leadership, as essential as tactics on the battlefield. In times of scarcity, the burden fell heaviest on those who could least afford it. Poor harvests could lead to famine not just for the army, but for the civilian population as well. In such times, the state might enforce stricter collection of grain taxes, squeezing the rural poor. The economic weight of feeding an army, while a necessity, also had the power to strain the social fabric, creating tensions between those who fed the army and those who wielded the sword. Yet, despite these challenges, the system endured, a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of ancient societies. The ability to sustain large armies over long campaigns was a feat of organization and economic management that speaks to the sophisticated understanding of logistics and resource allocation. As we reflect on this quiet yet profound aspect of military history, we are reminded of the countless unnamed individuals whose labor underpinned the might of empires. The plowman, the baker, the muleteer, each played a part in the grand tapestry of history, their contributions woven into the fabric of military success. Their stories, though seldom told, are as vital as those of the generals and soldiers who stood at the forefront. In this calm and contemplative examination, we find a gentle reminder of the interconnectedness of human endeavor. The economy that fed the armies of the past was a complex web of relationships and responsibilities, a testament to the power of cooperation and community. As we listen to the whispers of history, we can appreciate the enduring legacy of those who worked silently behind the scenes, ensuring that the wheels of war and peace continued to turn. In the quiet hum of an ancient scribe's quarters, we find the unseen machinery that propelled empires forward. The soft scratching of a stylus on clay, the delicate unrolling of a papyrus scroll, and the gentle clink of tally sticks being counted. These were the auditory signatures of a world where the written word and numerical record-keeping formed the backbone of military logistics. Imagine, if you will, the Roman administrative officer, cloaked in a tunic of modest design, seated at a wooden table strewn with wax tablets and ink. This officer was not a warrior with sword in hand, but a different kind of soldier, wielding quills and abacuses as their weapons of choice. Their battlefield was one of numbers and symbols, each stroke on the tablet ensuring that the legions were fed, clothed, and equipped for the campaigns that lay ahead. The Roman Empire, ever meticulous in its governance, understood the power inherent in a well-documented system. Before any legion marched, there was first the silent dance of figures and words, a choreography of logistics that ensured every soldier knew where their next meal would come from. This administrative diligence was not unique to Rome alone. It was a shared secret among ancient civilizations, a recognition that the success of any military venture relied not only on courage and strategy, but also on the quiet precision of record-keeping. Consider the clay tablets of Mesopotamia, impressed with cuneiform script. These tablets, small and unassuming, were precursors to our modern-day spreadsheets. They held within them the details of grain allowances, the allocation of livestock, and the distribution of rations. The scribes who crafted these records were the custodians of continuity, ensuring that the logistical needs of armies were met with unwavering consistency. In Egypt, the flow of papyrus was as vital as the Nile itself. The scribes of pharaohs chronicled everything from the quantities of barley stored in granaries to the precise numbers of cattle driven across the desert sands. Each scroll was a testament to the meticulous nature of Egyptian bureaucracy, where even the smallest detail was noted and preserved for posterity. These records were not merely for immediate use. They were a binding contract with the future, a promise that the lessons of today would inform the decisions of tomorrow. In Greece, tally marks on wooden sticks served as simple yet effective tools for keeping track of supplies. These sticks, often overlooked in their simplicity, were the silent witnesses to the ebb and flow of goods within the military apparatus. They told stories of trade and inventory, of what was bought, sold, or consumed, with each notch representing a transaction, a moment in time captured and remembered. The Persians, too, with their grand empire stretching across vast territories, relied heavily on their own sophisticated systems of record-keeping. Their use of parchment and ink allowed for detailed logs of the royal roads' waystations, documenting the food and fodder stored for the couriers and soldiers who traversed these ancient highways. These records were the lifeblood of a network that sustained one of history's great empires, ensuring that no traveler went without sustenance, no army lacked its necessary provisions. The beauty of these systems lay not only in their functionality, but also in their artistry. The art of writing, entwined with the science of logistics, created a tapestry of human ingenuity that was as beautiful as it was practical. Each document, whether etched in clay or inked on papyrus, was a work of art, a testament to the human capacity for organization and forethought. As we reflect on these ancient practices, there emerges a gentle reminder of the interconnectedness of all things. The success of a military campaign, the rise and fall of empires, the very ebb and flow of history itself, often hinged on the quiet diligence of those who worked behind the scenes. These were the unsung heroes, their contributions written not in the annals of epic battles, but in the ledger books and inventory lists that ensured those battles could take place at all. In this reflection, we find a thread that ties us to the past, a reminder that even in our modern world, where technology has transformed the way we document and record, the principles remain the same. The quiet power of bureaucracy, the unassuming yet essential nature of record keeping, continues to underpin our societies, ensuring that the wheels of progress turn smoothly. And so, as we quietly close the scrolls and set aside the tablets, let us pause to appreciate the intricate dance of numbers and words that have guided humanity through the ages. In the hushed corridors of history, where the echoes of battles may fade, it is the whispered scribbles and careful calculations that endure, reminding us of the silent strength found in the simple act of writing things down. As we draw near to the quiet heart of our tale, let us pause and turn our thoughts to those silent figures whose presence was felt, though their names were seldom recorded in the annals of history. These individuals who worked tirelessly behind the scenes formed the essential backbone of any ancient army. Without them, the grand strategies of generals would falter like a sandcastle against the tide, and the bravest soldiers would find their strength sapped by hunger and thirst long before the enemy was in sight. Imagine, if you will, the gentle hum of activity at the break of dawn in a Roman camp. While soldiers stirred from their slumber, preparing for the day's march or battle, a different kind of army was already at work. This invisible force, composed of supply workers, cooks, and farmers, was the lifeblood of the military machine, ensuring that each legionary had the sustenance needed to face the day ahead. In the quiet prelude to the chaos of war, the cooks would tend to their fires, coaxing flames into life in the chill of the morning air. Their task was one of delicate balance, turning raw ingredients into nourishing meals, often under the most challenging conditions. The aroma of baking bread and simmering porridge would slowly weave through the camp, a comforting reminder of home for soldiers far from their families. These cooks were more than mere providers of food. They were custodians of morale, their simple meals offering a moment of solace amidst the uncertainty of military life. Beyond the camp, the fields and farms were tended by those whose toil was equally crucial. These farmers, often conscripted into service or contributing under the weight of taxes, were the unsung heroes who ensured a steady flow of grain, vegetables, and livestock to the military supply lines. Their work was seasonal, dictated by the whims of weather and the fertility of the soil, yet their labor was ceaseless. In times of war, their fields became the first battlefield, as armies consumed resources at an astonishing rate. The farmer's plough and the soldier's spear were intrinsically linked, two ends of the same spectrum of survival. Consider, too, the role of the muleteers and wagon drivers, those who traversed the rugged terrain to bring supplies to the front lines. With a quiet determination, they guided their beasts of burden along dusty roads and narrow paths, their journeys often fraught with danger from both the elements and the threat of enemy skirmishes. Their knowledge of routes and ability to navigate through unfamiliar landscapes were as critical as any military tactic. The muleteers' steadfast commitment ensured that the vital lifeline of supplies remained unbroken, enabling armies to maintain their momentum across vast distances. Yet, despite the undeniable importance of these roles, history has often cast them into the shadows. The chronicles of past conflicts focus primarily on the deeds of warriors and the decisions of leaders, leaving the contributions of these everyday heroes to fade into obscurity. It is a curious oversight, for without the efforts of these individuals, the grand narratives of conquests and empires would be incomplete, if not entirely undone. In reflecting on this, one might conjure the image of a great tapestry, intricately woven with the threads of human endeavor. Each thread, no matter how humble, plays a vital part in the overall design. The soldiers and generals may form the bold patterns and vibrant colors, but it is the quieter, subtler threads, those of the supply workers, the cooks, and the farmers, that provide the structure and strength necessary to hold the tapestry together. Let us therefore pay tribute to this invisible army behind the army. As we lay our heads to rest and drift into the gentle embrace of sleep, let us carry with us a sense of gratitude for those whose labors have so often gone unnoticed. They remind us that in the grand theater of history, it is not only the actors on stage who merit applause, but also those who work diligently behind the scenes, ensuring that the show can go on. In this quiet reflection, we find a lesson that resonates through the ages, that true strength lies not merely in the might of arms, but in the unity and cooperation of all individuals working towards a common goal. It is a whisper of wisdom carried from the past, echoing softly into our present and inviting us to recognize and appreciate the intricate web of support that sustains us all. As we close our eyes, let these thoughts guide us into a peaceful slumber, where dreams of ancient times may mingle with our own, reminding us that even the smallest acts of service can hold the greatest significance. In the quiet reflections of history, we find whispers of lessons that echo through the corridors of time. As we consider the logistics of ancient armies, the mind is drawn to a simple truth. The survival of vast numbers was intricately woven from the threads of cooperation. Every army, every campaign, every march across a landscape was underpinned by a fragile yet resilient chain of human endeavor, a testament to our species' remarkable ability to organize, adapt, and sustain. Picture, if you will, the sprawling tapestry of an ancient army in motion. Not merely a force of warriors, but a bustling, moving city of individuals, each with a role to play. From the farmer who tilled the fields, ensuring the grain was ready for the harvest, to the potter who shaped amphorae designed to safeguard precious provisions. Each link in this logistical chain was crucial, each task a vital cog in the machine of survival. It is here, nestled within the mundane details of supply and demand, that we discover the essence of cooperation. The ancient quartermasters, those unsung heroes of military history, orchestrated the flow of resources with a precision that often determined the success or failure of campaigns. Their work was not of grand gestures or dramatic battles, but of quiet, relentless planning and execution. They remind us that behind every celebrated triumph, there are countless untold stories of those who enabled it, working tirelessly in the background. In the delicate balance of logistics, we observe an ancient understanding that resonates with modern sensibilities. The ability to feed an army was not merely a matter of resource acquisition, but of resource management. It required foresight, adaptability, and a profound understanding of the environment. The ancients were well aware that the strength of their armies lay not just in numbers or weaponry, but in their ability to sustain themselves on long campaigns, to adapt to changing circumstances, and to make the most of what was available. This historical perspective offers a gentle reminder of the interconnectedness inherent in human endeavors. The notion that no single element operates in isolation, but rather as part of a larger whole, is a concept that remains as relevant today as it was millennia ago. Our modern world, with its complex networks of supply and demand, echoes the logistical challenges faced by those ancient armies. Though the technologies have evolved, the fundamental principles of cooperation and interdependence remain steadfast. Reflecting on the ingenuity of these ancient logistical systems, we find inspiration in their simplicity and effectiveness. Consider the Roman legion, which thrived on the meticulous organization of its supply lines, or the Persian Empire, with its strategically placed waystations. Each civilization developed unique methods to overcome the challenges of sustenance, adapting to their specific environments and resources. These solutions were as diverse as the cultures that created them, yet all were bound by a common thread: the necessity of collaboration. The lessons of ancient logistics extend beyond the realm of military history. They speak to a broader human experience, one where cooperation is not just a strategy for survival, but a foundation for progress. In a world that often celebrates individual achievement, it is worth contemplating the quiet power of collective effort. The ancients understood that the success of any great endeavor depended not on the strength of a single leader, but on the cumulative actions of many. As we draw these reflections to a close, we are invited to consider the present and future through the lens of the past. In the gentle hum of history's lessons, we find guidance for navigating the complexities of our interconnected world. The challenges we face today, from global supply chains to environmental sustainability, call for the same spirit of collaboration and innovation that sustained ancient armies. Let us take a moment to appreciate the intricate dance of logistics that continues to sustain us, acknowledging the vast network of individuals whose efforts ensure our needs are met. From the farmer to the factory worker, the truck driver to the shopkeeper, each plays a role in the ongoing story of human cooperation. In recognizing the fragile chain that binds us, we are reminded of our shared humanity and the power of working together towards common goals. As we drift into rest, let us carry with us the quiet assurance that, like our ancestors before us, we are capable of great things when we unite in purpose and harmony. As we gently approach the end of our journey through the intricate world of ancient logistics, let us pause for a moment to reflect on the unseen forces that quietly shaped the course of history. In the grand tapestry of past events, battles and conquests often take center stage, their clamor echoing through time. But beneath the surface, like the soft rustle of leaves in a breeze, operates a subtler narrative, that of supply lines and logistics, weaving the very fabric upon which the grand designs of empires depended. Imagine, if you will, the quiet diligence of those who ensured that armies, vast and formidable, were nourished and sustained. These were the individuals whose names rarely grace the pages of history books, yet their contributions were as vital as those of the warriors they supported. The quartermasters who meticulously calculated the rations required for each soldier, the farmers who toiled under the sun to produce the grain that would fuel a campaign, the muleteers who guided their dependable animals through rugged terrains. These were the silent architects of victory. In the stillness of this reflection, we find ourselves contemplating the sheer complexity of transporting sustenance across the vast expanses of ancient landscapes. Picture the Roman legionnaires, clad in their distinct armor, marching along the well-engineered roads of the empire. With each step, they relied not only on their martial prowess but on the food carried on their backs, the grain ground into flour at the mobile mills, and the bread baked in the camp ovens. Such was the rhythm of military life, a dance between survival and strategy, where the whisper of logistics orchestrated the movements of men and beasts alike. Consider the ingenuity required to preserve food in an era long before refrigeration. The art of smoking and salting, the careful sealing of amphorae and jars, the delicate balance of fermentation, these were the skills that ensured armies could endure long marches and prolonged sieges. In this quiet mastery, we see humanity's enduring capacity for innovation in the face of necessity, an unspoken testament to our resilience and creativity. As we ponder these ancient logistics, let us also reflect on the broader lessons they offer us today. The mechanisms of cooperation that underpinned these efforts remind us that survival, whether of an army or a civilization, is rarely a solitary endeavor. It is a collective symphony, a harmonious blend of roles and responsibilities, each contributing to the greater whole. In this interdependence, we find a gentle reminder of the importance of unity and collaboration in our own lives. And so, as we close this exploration of history's quieter facets, let us carry with us the serene understanding that even the mightiest of armies relied on the most delicate of threads, the supply lines that sustained them. These threads, though often invisible, were woven with care and precision, a testament to the human spirit's capacity to organize and endure. As you drift into restful sleep, allow your thoughts to wander through these ancient landscapes, where the whisper of logistics sings a lullaby of endurance and quiet triumph. Let the gentle cadence of this narrative guide you into a state of calm reflection, where the echoes of history blend seamlessly with the quiet of the night. In this tranquil space, may you find peace and rest, knowing that even in the grandest of stories, it is often the subtle, unassuming elements that hold the greatest power. In this moment of repose, we are reminded that while battles may echo loudly, it is the quiet perseverance of logistics that whispers through the ages, carrying with it the essence of human endeavor. May this thought cradle you into a peaceful slumber, as the curtains of the past draw softly to a close, leaving you with a gentle sense of wonder and tranquility.